In every corner of our ancient world, there are questions that refuse to die. Beneath layers of dust and time lie ruins, artifacts, and whispers, remnants of civilizations that seem to challenge everything we thought we knew about history, technology, and human potential. Designs that were cut with mathematical precision before the invention of mathematics. Stones transported through mountains without wheels or cars. Messages engraved with forgotten writings. Written by hands that we can no longer name. Who built them? What for? And more importantly, how? These are not just gaps in our textbooks. These are gaping wounds in our understanding of the past. Riddles that aren't just confusing, they're challenging. They are unsettling. They make us question whether history as we know it is just the surface of something much deeper. Has there ever been a lost chapter in human history, buried under ash, ocean, or denial? We're going to reveal it tonight. So sit back, relax, and let's dive deep into the most intricate ancient mysteries that science still can't explain. Beneath the restless waves of the Atlantic Ocean, somewhere between myth and memory, lies the shadow of a world long lost in time. The story begins with Plato. Around 360 BC in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, the philosopher tells a story passed down from generation to generation about a powerful island state beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. Atlantis, he wrote, was a land of great power, developed architecture, and moral sophistication. A utopia made up of concentric rings of land and sea, where golden statues shimmered in the sun and huge temples towered high above the ground. But in one unlucky day and night, he disappeared under the water. Was it just an allegory, a cautionary tale about arrogance, greed, and the fall of civilizations? Or could it be a fragment of a distorted memory that reflects a real event buried deep in prehistoric times? Archaeologists and historians have long debated this question. Some believe that Plato invented Atlantis solely to illustrate his political ideas. Others suggest that it may have been based on older Egyptian records brought to Greece by Soles, a lawgiver and traveler who visited the temples of Saya centuries earlier. According to the priests, Atlantis was already a forgotten memory. Its destruction occurred more than 9,000 years before Solon's time. If this is true, then such a timeline would place Atlantis well before any known civilization, before the pyramids, before Sumer, before recorded history itself. For centuries, adventurers and scientists have searched the globe for traces of this mysterious world. Some point to the volcanic island of Santorini, once home to the Minoan civilization. There in the Aegean Sea, a catastrophic eruption around 1600 BC destroyed the island and its inhabitants. An event that eerily resembles Plato's story. Can this be the true Atlantis, hidden by the veil of time and poetic license? Others look further afield. The coasts of Spain and Morocco, the flooded land masses of the Azores or the Caribbean. Modern satellite images have revealed unusual underwater formations that have sparked a new wave of speculation. Are these natural formations remnants of ancient harbors and structures destroyed by millennia of tides? In addition, there are more secondary possibilities, ideas that are often rejected but never completely refuted. Some speculate that Atlantis was part of a prehistoric global civilization linked by knowledge lost to humans. As a result of a forgotten cataclysm, that ancient maps, such as the Piri Reis map, hint at an understanding of geography far beyond their time. That the stories of the Great Flood found in cultures around the world can indicate a common trauma, a memory of something devastating and real. No definitive evidence has emerged, no ruins, no inscriptions, no definitive clues, and yet the mystery persists. Why does Atlantis continue to fascinate us? Perhaps because it seems barely out of reach, like a dream we almost remember, a world that might have been or once was just beyond our knowledge. So we are left with the same question that haunted Plato's readers more than 2,000 years ago. Did Atlantis really exist? Or is its absence the greatest clue of all? And while the ruins of Atlantis remain elusive, buried under legends in the sea, somewhere far from their reach of the ocean, another ancient mystery rises from the dust of time. High on a windswept hill in southeastern Turkey, not far from the modern city of Sanliurfa, a barren landscape stretches in all directions. The dry grass sways gently under the pale sky. To the untrained eye, it seems unremarkable, quiet, even forgotten. But beneath this land is Göbekli Tepe, the oldest known temple complex on Earth. First discovered in the 1990s, Tepe Göbekli disrupted the generally accepted time frame. Radiocarbon dating has shown that it was built almost 12,000 years ago, millennia before the pyramids, Stonehenge, or even the rise of agriculture. Massive T-shaped stone columns, some of which weigh more than 10 tons, are arranged in a circle, and they are carved with intricate animal reliefs, abstract symbols, and human-like shapes. How, and more importantly, why did Stone Age people, nomadic hunter-gatherers with no written language, no metal tools, no domesticated animals, manage to build something so complex, so elaborate, and so vast? Traditional narratives tell us that monumental architecture came after settled farming communities, that religion followed civilization, but the Tepe Göbekli suggests otherwise. This ritual of faith may have been the first, that people may have gathered not just to survive, but also to worship, celebrate something sacred, create meaning before they built cities. Archaeologists have only excavated a small part of the site, revealing dozens of these massive megaliths arranged in mysterious ways. Some carvings, foxes, snakes, birds are clear, but others seem symbolic or astronomical. One column, known as Column 43, depicts a group of animals under a strange disc that some researchers interpret as a form of protocol or even a memory of a cosmic event such as a comet strike. However, much remains unknown. There are no writings to guide us, no graves, no clear answers. Archaeologists suggest that Göbekli Tepe was a ritual center built by disparate groups that periodically returned for ceremonies. But other theories go beyond academic ones. Some people see the thread as encrypted messages, others offer lost technologies, ancient knowledge forgotten over time. Was it really the work of isolated gatherers, or the legacy of a civilization older than the ancient ones? Did we imagine that? And why was it buried? At some point, long after its use, the Tepe Göbekli was deliberately walled up under layers of earth. Great efforts were made to hide it, protect it, or erase it from the face of the earth. Was it abandoned and forgotten, or did something else work? We still don't know. Today, as new layers are discovered, the mystery deepens. With each pillar lifted out of the ground, there are more questions than answers. And somewhere in that silence between the rock and the sky, you can almost feel the presence of something ancient, watching, waiting to be understood. What is Tepe Göbekli? A temple, a turning point in human consciousness, or a message from a world we no longer remember? The past is not gone. It's just buried, waiting. And while the Tepe Göbekli challenges our understanding of when civilization began, another mystery far to the east asks a quieter but equally profound question. How do you understand people if you can't read their words? Buried in the dried-up riverbeds of what was once the fertile Indus Valley are the remains of a forgotten world. Among the dust-covered bricks of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, in what is now Pakistan and northwestern India, archaeologists have discovered the bones of a civilization that flourished more than 4,000 years ago and then disappeared. It was huge, cutting-edge, and surprisingly modern. The cities were arranged in an orderly network with multi-story buildings, public baths, drainage systems, and standardized scales. Evidence of the Mesopotamian trade routes, craft and cultural items, society of organization and order. But what they believed, what they dreamed, what they feared, what they wrote down, we just don't know. Because their essays, if they are essays at all, remain unread. Soapstone seals, ceramics, tablets, and tools are etched with rows of tiny symbols, often just a handful per inscription. Elegant, thoughtful, and consistent. They depict animals, geometric shapes, humanoid figures, and signs that do not resemble any known alphabet. Some appear to be idols, others pictographs, but the bilingual key was never found. There is no Rosetta Stone to reveal their meaning. Scientists have long debated whether this is a real writing system. Some believe it was a proto-script, symbols used to denote trade or religious identity, but without grammar or sentence structure. Others argue that it was a full-fledged complex language, now lost in time and waiting for the necessary breakthrough to be read again. Why can't we decipher it? The brevity of the labels gives few hints. Most of them consist of only 4 or 5 characters, which is too small for traditional linguistic analysis. In addition, writing does not seem to evolve over time as other writing systems do. And since the civilization left no known descendants who preserved the language, it is isolated, disconnected from the tree of written history. Prepositions fill in the blanks. Some suggest that the written language is encrypted with spiritual or ritual knowledge intended only for initiates. Others suggest that it was used alongside a colloquial language that has long since disappeared. There are even marginal theories that it represents a completely different mode of communication, or that its meaning is symbolic rather than phonetic. And then comes the greatest mystery of all. What caused the collapse of civilization? Around 1900 BC, the cities were gradually abandoned. Climate change, river displacement, or internal decline, no one can say for sure. And with them, Cenarius also disappeared. Today we are left with fragments, seals hidden in museum boxes, symbols etched on forgotten stone, thousands of silent messages looking at us across the abyss of time. What were they trying to say? Did they count the goods, called out into the gods, recorded history, or something completely different? Until we can read their words, the Indus Valley soul remains a mystery, a voice from the deep past, speaking in a language we no longer understand. And just as the Indus Valley Script remains a silent witness to a forgotten language, some secrets are not set in stone at all, but are hidden deep in the living wilderness. For there are places on this earth where time doesn't just flow, it consumes. The vast, sprawling, and unfathomably dense Amazon rainforest stretches across South America like a living ocean of greenery. Under their high canopy, sunlight barely touches the forest floor. The rivers meander and disappear into the undergrowth. The air is saturated with the smell of decay and life in constant tension. This place is full of secrets, and one of the most enduring is the legend of the lost city of Z. For British explorer Percy Fawcett, it wasn't just a fairy tale, it was a calling. In the early 20th century, Fawcett traveled to the Amazon in search of a ruined city that, in his opinion, once stood deep in the jungle, an advanced civilization hidden from the eyes of the modern world. He just called it Z, based on ancient manuscripts, local stories, and the strange artifacts he encountered. Fawcett believed that Z would rival the great cities of antiquity. Its inhabitants understand mathematics, astronomy, perhaps even something more. In 1925, Fawcett disappeared into the rainforest with his son and a small team, and was never seen again. What happened to them remains one of the greatest research mysteries of the 20th century, but even more troubling is the question he left behind. Was he wrong or just too early? For decades, Fawcett's ideas were dismissed as fantasy, colonial megalomania, projections on a landscape too wild and hostile for organized civilization. The prevailing belief was that the Amazon, with its poor soil and extreme conditions, could never feed a large, complex society. But in recent years, science has begun to catch up with speculation. Using satellite images and LAR scans, the researchers found a vast network of geoglyphs, dams, and urban layouts buried under centuries-old jungle thickets. Hidden embankments and smooth lines of ditches suggest planning, intent. Evidence of agriculture, roads, and even possible ceremonial centers paints a picture very different from what was once believed. This Z, or thousands of smaller Zs, scattered across the forgotten Amazon empire. However, much remains hidden. The jungle recovers quickly, and many of these places are virtually inaccessible. The few that have been partially discovered suggest that the society was highly adapted to its environment and mysteriously disappeared long before contact with Europe, leaving virtually no trace. Could there be knowledge here that we have yet to rediscover? The maps and myths handed down in the oral traditions of indigenous people hint at something more. Structures made of stone and earth, places of power and purpose. What about Fawcett himself? Did he find something and decide to stay? Or had the forest, like the mystery, simply closed in on him? The lost city of Z remains in the imagination because a booth speaks of something deeper, in whispers of the unknown. reminding us that not all civilizations leave monuments. Some leave only questions. And while the dense overgrown forests of the Amazon hold whispers of vanished empires far across the ocean, on the sun-baked coasts of southern Spain, another silence reigns, older than Rome, but almost completely forgotten. Not far from the mouth of the Guadalquivir River, where the land turns into wide swampy plains, and the Atlantic breeze carries the smell of salt and distant memories, there once stood a city that is said to have shone with gold. His name was Tartessus. Mentioned in both ancient Greek texts and Hebrew writings, Tartessos was described as a land of great wealth, a place where silver flowed in such abundance that it was considered worthless. This is what Herodotus said. So did Strabo and Avienus. In the Old Testament, the place may even be referred to as Tarshish, a remote trading port where ships brought treasures from all over the known world. But what is Tartessos and why did it disappear? By the first millennium BC, Tartessos had become one of the great mysteries of the Western Mediterranean, a culture that was both part of the ancient world and strangely different from it. Archaeological evidence suggests that they were skilled metalworkers, merchants, and possibly navigators who maintained contact with the Phoenicians and Greeks. In their artistic style, Oriental motifs were combined with local flavor. Their language has not yet been deciphered. Their writing, known only from a few inscriptions, remains undiscovered. Unlike Rome or Egypt, Tartessos did not leave behind any magnificent temples or preserved stone cities. Only fragments survive, richly decorated gold ornaments buried in tombs, river-eaten stones with strange carvings, and hints of architecture that are now lost in changing landscapes. Some believe that the Tartessians were a local culture that flourished for a time before being absorbed or destroyed, possibly by war, possibly a natural disaster. Others suggest a more dramatic end, a massive flood, tidal wave, a sudden collapse of trade routes that left their cities silently collapsing. Still, there are those who draw a connection between Tartessos and older myths, wondering if this was the inspiration for Atlantis itself, a thriving coastal civilization that suddenly disappeared, swallowed up by the sea. Did Plato repeat his memories of Tartessos, filtered through time and geography? Recent research near the Doñana National Park, once part of a vast inland lagoon, has fueled speculation. Satellite images, ground-penetrating radar, and soil analysis revealed unusual geometric formations that suggest artificial structures that are now buried under mud and silt. Could it be the remnants of Tartessus, or is it something even more ancient? Despite decades of excavation, Tartessos remains a mystery, half history, half legend. What kind of people lived there, trading silver and tin with the ancient world? What language did they speak? And what stories did they tell? Why, after centuries of life, think they disappeared so completely? The traces left behind are scanty, a few words set in stone, a few pieces of finely crafted gold in the quiet of the marshes where the tides still come and go, washing over what may once have been the streets of a forgotten kingdom. Tartessos is not just a mystery of where, but why, and possibly who. And just as the shimmering legacy of Tartessos is disappearing into the swamps of southern Spain, we are now turning to another ancient land, one whose monuments still rise above the desert, whose kings' names are etched in eternity. Yet even here in the heart of Egypt, there are secrets that are hidden underground, secrets that defy explanation. Southwest of Cairo, beyond the familiar grandeur of the Giza Plateau, beyond the shadow of pyramids less visited by tourists, near the village of Hawara lies a forgotten plain. To an outsider, this place seems unremarkable. Low mounds of broken stones scattered across the arid land. But the ancient texts describe something completely different that once stood here. Something huge, something unlike anything else in Egypt or the ancient world. They called it the maze. First mentioned by Herodotus in the 5th century BC, the Greek historian claimed to have seen it with his own eyes. He wrote about a building more impressive than the pyramids themselves. 12 huge courtyards, thousands of connected cells, passageways winding through 2 huge levels, one above the ground, the other below. And deep in the lower chambers, he said, were the tombs of kings and sacred crocodiles, sealed from the world. Diodoric, Pliny the Elder, Strabo, Others repeat similar descriptions. Some say that the labyrinth was a temple, others the royal archives. Still others hint at something more esoteric, a structure built not just for obfuscation, but also for protection, designed to conceal knowledge, rites, or truths intended only for initiates. And yet, despite the vividness of these stories, there is no trace of it, or so it seems. At the end of the 19th century, the famous Egyptologist Flinders Petrie conducted excavations in the vicinity of Hawara. He found the remains of a vast platform nearly 300 meter long, under which he believed there had once been a maze, fragments of columns, intricate carvings, polished floors, but the structure itself has disappeared, dismantled in ancient times. Its stone was remade, its halls destroyed, its history silenced. Or was it? In 2008, a team of researchers from Belgium and Egypt conducted ground-penetrating radar surveys of the area. What they found sparked renewed interest. Under the surface, under layers of sand and debris, there are complex geometric anomalies, rectangular patterns that resemble walls, rooms, or corridors. Was it a lost maze? Or another forgotten structure waiting for its story to be told? There are many assumptions. Some suggest that the labyrinth was a huge library that contained sacred texts and knowledge from the earliest dynasties of Egypt. Others believe that it contained records of pre-dynastic kings or even civilizations that existed before Egypt itself. More and more minor theories link this to Atlantis, secret societies, or encrypted wisdom, a stew passed down from a forgotten era. But despite all the stories, all the maps, measurements, and satellite images, one truth remains the same. No modern excavations have allowed us to fully reveal what is under Hawara. What was the purpose of creating such a huge and complex structure? Why was it buried, dismantled, erased from history? And what else can be hidden under this quiet plain of stone and sand? The lost Egyptian labyrinth continues to elude us, not only physically, but also intellectually. A riddle carved into stone, then carried away, perhaps waiting for the right eyes to find it again. And from the hidden mystery of the lost Egyptian labyrinth, we move north to the scorching sun and the endless sands of the Giza Plateau. Nothing is hidden here. The landscape declares itself openly, defiantly, as if challenging the modern world to explain what it still cannot fully understand. The Great Pyramid of Giza, rising with incredible precision from the desert floor, has stood for more than 4,500 years, built for Pharaoh Khufu, or so the tradition goes. Once it rose to a height of 146 meters. Its sides almost perfectly coincide with the cardinal directions of the compass, and the base is on the same level with an accuracy of several centimeters. Built from more than 2 million limestone and granite blocks, some of which weigh up to 80 tons, it's the last remaining wonder of the ancient world. Yet its greatest miracle may not be what we see, but what we still don't understand. How was it built? This simple but persistent question was never fully answered. Traditional archaeology suggests a system of ramps, levers, and a huge workforce. Tens of thousands of workers have worked for more than 2 decades. But the logistical challenges remain overwhelming. Precision, scale, and an interior layout that includes sloping passageways, hidden shafts, and chambers lined with polished granite sourced from quarries hundreds of kilometers away. And there is also the curious fact that no exact drawings, no inscriptions inside the pyramid, and no records from the time of construction have ever been found. The structure in many ways speaks for itself and says nothing. Inside, the air is cool, still, and heavy with a silence that feels deliberate. A large gallery with a high-vaulted ceiling rises steeply to the royal apartments, a completely rectangular room with only one empty stone sarcophagus. The room is lined with massive granite slabs, so precisely fitted that modern engineers still argue about how they were transported and placed. Above it are 5 so-called discharge chambers, which serve a constructive purpose. But some suggest that they may also have a symbolic meaning. Others point to ventilation shafts, narrow passages leading from the chambers of kings and queens to the outside. Were they intended for ventilation, astronomical alignment, or rituals? And then there's the Scan Pyramids project, a state-of-the-art effort using muon tomography to look inside the pyramid structure. In 2017, a previously unknown void was discovered, an empty space at least 30 meters long located above the Grand Gallery. What it is and why it exists remains unclear. Another tomb, a structural anomaly, a secret chamber untouched for thousands of years. Assumptions inevitably spread further. Some assume that mathematical constants, the speed of light, the value of pi, and the golden ratio are encoded in the pyramid. Others claim that it served not only as a tomb, but also as an energy device, a celestial observatory, or even a repository of ancient knowledge lost to history. Leading scientists remain cautious, but even they admit that the Great Pyramid holds secrets that we have yet to unravel. Why such precision? Why are they like this in effort for a single tomb? And why, generation after generation, does it continue to reach out to something deeper within us? The Great Pyramid does not require faith. It requires presence. And in this presence, one can't help but wonder what else we've overlooked, just because it's always been there. And while the Great Pyramid of Giza stands as a monument to mathematical precision in the desert, on the other side of the world, high in the Andes, another mystery is carved not in the sky, but in the very bowels of the earth. Above the city of Cusco in Peru, where the air is thin and the mountains stretch to the transparent sky, is the ancient fortress of Sacsayhuaman. Its terraces wind down the hillside like traces of a forgotten language. Giant stone walls connected together with such precision that not even a blade of grass can fit between them. Here, the mystery is not only what's left, but also how it was made. The stones are massive. Some weigh more than 100 tons, have irregular shapes, polyhedral faces, and intertwining angles. They appear to be molten, molded, or molded to size, not by force, but by intent. No amount of mortar holds them together, and yet they have withstood centuries of earthquakes that have leveled modern buildings nearby. The walls curve to encompass the contours of the earth, smooth as architecture that understands movement. Basic archaeology places the site in the Inca Empire, whose stonework was known for its sophistication. But even among the Inca ruins, Sacsayhuaman stands apart, grander in scale and more ancient in feel. Some scholars believe that the Incas inherited this place by developing a foundation laid by a previous civilization, whose name was lost, but whose stones were preserved. How did they carve these monoliths? What tools were used to create such flawless connections? And how did these huge blocks move over rough terrain without wheels, without draft animals? Modern experiments with chisels and levers can't approximate some aspects, but questions remain. There are no plans, no texts describing the methods, only the stones themselves, silent, patient, untouched by time. Some suggest that a deep understanding of the stone was passed down from generation to generation, knowledge that combined physical engineering with a thorough study of natural fractures and mineral structure. Others look further afield. Did these builders use heat, vibration, or lost technology that they no longer understand? And then there are theories that go completely beyond the conventional framework, that the stones were chemically softened, cast like clay, that the sound frequencies played a role. What we see is not just engineering, but deliberate geometry with a definite purpose, a language written in mass and perspective, intended to convey something long forgotten. Sacsayhuaman is not just a wall. This is a statement, a challenge. It asks us not only how it was built, but also why. Was it purely defensive, ceremonial, astronomical, or something weirder, still connected to the energies that were being used in the past? Are we no longer measuring, calibrated according to a worldview that we no longer share? And why, with all our tools, can't we replicate its elegance? Perhaps the secret of Sacsayhuaman lies not in what is missing, but in what remains. A stone fashioned without arrogance, quiet but unyielding. A message that may not be meant to be read, but rather to be felt. And with this feeling, we are left to wonder who they really were and what they knew in whom, which we have since forgotten. And from the high ridges of the Andes, where the stones of Sacsayhuaman retain their silent symmetry, we head east to a place where the earth itself seems carved with incredible intent. In the Bekaa Valley of present-day Lebanon, the colossal ruins of Baalbek are set against a backdrop of distant mountains and olive groves. At first glance, Baalbek seems to be a miracle of Roman history. Tall Corinthian columns, remnants of what had once been the great temple of Jupiter, stretched skyward. But beneath these classic remains lies nothing much older and much stranger. Massive stone blocks form the platform on which the Roman temple was built. These are not ordinary foundation stones. 3 of them, collectively known as trilithon, weigh about 800 tons each. An even larger stone of a pregnant woman, estimated to weigh more than 1,000 tons, is partially buried in the ground. And more recently, another megalith was discovered, still in its quarry, heavier than all of them. Carved, shaped, and moved with such precision and scale, these blocks raise questions that go far beyond the stones themselves. How are they extracted and transported? Conventional archaeology suggests a combination of ramps, roller skates, and human labor. The Romans certainly had the engineering skills to create monumental architecture, but many experts believe that these blocks appeared centuries, perhaps millennia earlier than the Roman temple. The exact dating remains unclear. No inscriptions link the megaliths to a known culture, and no ancient texts describe their construction. So we are left with theories. One of them claims that the stones were pulled out of the quarry with the help of wet sand, sleds, and teams of workers. But that explanation doesn't hold much weight. The terrain between the quarry and the platform is uneven, with no obvious signs of such infrastructure. And how were they lifted, leveled, and installed with such precision once on the construction site? The blocks sit so tightly together that even today a knife blade cannot slip between them. Their surfaces are flat, their corners sharp, as if the stone was cut not by rough tools, but by something more refined, more elaborate. Naturally, speculative ideas arise. Some suggest that the megaliths are the remains of a much older, forgotten civilization, whose knowledge of stone products exceeded what we usually associate with the ancient world. Others believe that Baalbek was once a sacred or energy center, its stones laid out to harness natural forces. There are even suggestions linking this to biblical lore, suggesting that Baalbek was once known as the city of Cain, or even built by giants. And yet, no definitive answer appeared. Why go so far as to move stones that no one could see, buried under later temples? What purpose did they serve that justified such a monumental effort? Was it an architectural ambition or something deeper? The megaliths of Baalbek challenge not only our understanding of engineering, but also our intent. They ask us to take a closer look, not just at how civilizations are built, but also why. And Wensi sits over the ruined pillars and long-forgotten stones, wondering what knowledge was once stored in this place, now lost under centuries of silence and stone. And while the massive stones of Baalbek rest in silence, half buried in the soil of antiquity, we turn to the windswept plain far to the north, where another circle of stones rises out of the mist, not buried, but standing, watching, as if waiting on the grassy expanse of Salisbury Plain in southern England. Surrounded by fields and sky, the ancient monument known as Stonehenge casts its long shadow both on the ground and on time. The landscape is harsh but oddly serene. Giant sarsen crenels, weathered by thousands of winters, stand deliberately, some topped with lintels that seem to defy gravity. Around them, small blue stones, brought from more than 150 miles away, form inner rings. Stonehenge is a structure defined by both what we don't know and what we see. Built in stages over more than 1,000 years, starting as early as 3000 BC, Stonehenge originated in Britain before the advent of writing. There are no records explaining who built it or why. Yet its design demonstrates a knowledge of geometry, astronomy, and landscape layout that continues to amaze. The stones are placed with amazing precision. On the summer solstice, the rising sun aligns perfectly with the heel stone, shedding its light through the heart of the monument. Similar alignments mark the winter solstice and other celestial events. Was it a calendar, a ceremonial observatory, a place for rituals marking life, death, and the changing seasons? Archaeological evidence suggests that Stonehenge was part of a much larger sacred landscape, connected to other sites by pathways, moats, and wooden structures. For example, near the walls of Darrington, there are traces of feasts and gatherings, possibly hinting at pilgrimage or ritual use. Human remains found at this site also suggest that it may have served as a sort of burial site, although not exclusively. But the construction methods remain as mysterious as their purpose. How many tons of stones were transported across miles of countryside without wheels or draft animals? Were they dragged, rolled, or floated down rivers? And how, once there, were they set in place, some of them more than 20 feet high? Traditional explanations point to ingenious engineering and teamwork. Nevertheless, the effort of several generations suggests something more than practicality, something deeply symbolic. And so there are speculations. Some suggest that Stonehenge was a healing place. Its stones are believed to have mystical properties. Others suggest that it signified a connection between heaven and earth, a kind of ancient astronomical computer. Peripheral theories go further, imagining lost civilizations, extraterrestrial contacts, or forgotten energies encoded in stone. Whatever the truth, one thing is for sure. The builders of Stonehenge were not primitive. They were deliberate. For example, they are far-sighted. Their stones still stand where they put them, enduring wind, time, and uncertainty. Why did they build it? What did they see when they looked up at the sky? When they were standing in the center, surrounded by giants of their own making? St. Stonehenge doesn't offer easy answers, just the quiet, haunting certainty that we're not the first ones to ask this question. And just as the stones of Stonehenge stretch upward according to the solar cycles and seasons of the year, deep in the desert of Upper Egypt, beneath the surface, lies a different kind of mystery, hidden in the shadows, carved into the rock as if it were never meant to be seen by the world above. Hidden behind the great temple of Seti in Abydos, partially submerged and often overlooked, stands the Osirion, an underground monument whose design and construction continue to puzzle archaeologists and historians alike. In contrast to the exquisite elegance of the nearby Phoenician temples, Osirion is austere and imposing. Its main structure is constructed of massive granite blocks, some of which weigh up to 60 tons, laid with amazing precision. The columns are square, monolithic, and bare, their simplicity contrasting sharply with the intricate reliefs of the Seti temple above. There are no inscriptions to guide us, no grandiose declarations of purpose. Osirion speaks not with words but with expectation and mumbling. Mainstream Egyptology places this structure at the time of Seti I's reign, around the 13th century BC. It is true that the temple has a map of it at the top, and a connecting passage connects the two complexes, but questions quickly arise. The architectural style of Oregon is noticeably different, megalithic, strict, and seemingly more ancient in form. Some scholars suggest that it may have been a symbolic tomb of the god Osiris, echoing the myths of death, rebirth, and the underworld. However, the granite used in its construction had to be transported from Aswan, more than 100 menors further south. A monumental task even for experienced Egyptian builders. And the location of the site below the water table means that even in ancient times, the island would have been partially flooded. Was this done intentionally? Did the builders mean that the monument interacts with water, reflects, immerses in itself, or echoes something deeper than the architectural design? More speculative voices wonder if Osirion is much older than the time of Seti I. Some have noted similarities between its megalithic design and pre-dynastic structures found in other parts of the world. I wonder if this place was remodeled by the Egyptians, but built long before them by a civilization whose memory has disappeared. Then there's the so-called Flower of Life, a geometric pattern lightly etched into one of the granite columns. Although it was probably added much later, its presence has sparked a modern fascination with claims of sacred geometry, hidden knowledge and mathematical resonance embedded in the stone itself. Yet despite the speculation, Osirion remains defiantly opaque. Why build such a monumental structure in such an inaccessible place? Why the lack of inscriptions in a culture obsessed with capturing every detail of its sacred architecture? And what was the real purpose of this place, buried, submerged, and forgotten? Perhaps Osirion was meant to remain a hidden, sacred place not for the living, but for the gods and myths. Or perhaps it's a piece of a deeper story that we've only just begun to uncover. His stones don't respond. They are simply saved. And in their silence, they ask a question that we still can't get rid of. How much of the past did we really remember? And how much more do we have to rediscover? And while Osirion is hidden beneath the sands of Egypt, whispering from a deep past in carved granite and shadowed silence, another mystery lies far beneath the water, carved, apparently, from the very foundation of the earth and discovered only by accident. Off the southern coast of Japan, near the remote island of Yonaguni, divers exploring coral reefs in the mid-1980s discovered something extraordinary. A huge underwater formation, angular and jagged, as if sculpted by skilled hands. It quickly became known as the Yonaguni Monument, and since then it has been located in this curious space between geology and archaeology, between nature and a vanished civilization. Submerged almost 25 meters underwater, the monument looks like a sunken ziggurat. Its wide, flat platforms, straight steps, and perfectly linear walls rise from the ocean floor with striking symmetry. The angles are sharp, the angles are precise. Wide terraces lead to what some call staircases. Flat planes intersect at 90-degree angles, and massive stone blocks seem to form passageways and corridors. One part, called the scene, resembles an altar, the other a step pyramid. Could it really be natural? Some geologists think so. They claim that the monument is a product of natural destruction. The sandstone is formed as a result of tectonic movements and erosion imposed by millennia of wave action. They suggest that in a region prone to seismic activity, straight lines and sharp cliffs are not unusual. After all, the sea has its own art, but others aren't so sure. Marine geologist Masaki Kiyomura, who has spent years studying the site, has identified what he believes are stone roads, retaining walls, and even carved symbols, elements that he claims could not have formed naturally. He also believes that the monument was once part of a coastal city built more than 10,000 years ago, before the end of the last ice age, when sea levels were significantly lower. If this is true, it would suggest a civilization much older and more advanced than anything currently known in the region, which predates ancient Mesopotamia, ancient Egypt, and would challenge the entire chronology of human development. But little evidence remains. No tools, pottery, or human remains were found. Only form, structure, and mystery. Is this a case of pareidolia, the human tendency to see patterns and meaning in natural forms? And do we see the submerged ruins of a culture lost in the rising seas and time? The assumptions go even further. Some attribute this to ancient flood myths, echoes of the time when the ocean consumed entire worlds. Others suggest that Yonaguni may have been a remnant of Mu or Lemuria, hypothetical lost continents that, according to the theory, once existed in the Pacific Ocean. Such ideas hover on the edge of history and imagination, attracting attention precisely because they are impossible to prove and refute. What do we think of a monument that doesn't have a clear origin, name, or language? As the currents pass silently over the stone, the Yonaguni monument remains motionless, massive, unmoving, unanswered, a mystery beneath the waves. And so we ask, has this place ever been touched by a human hand? Or is nature itself trying to tell a story that we have yet to understand? And as we leave behind the Yonaguni monument, still steeped in salt water and mystery, we ascend the hills of Western India, where the stone tells a different story, not about erosion or seismic destruction, but about purposeful removal. A structure built not out of stone, but out of it. In the small town of Ellora, carved into the rocky cliffs of the Sahyadri Hills, stands one of the most amazing architectural achievements in human history, the Kailasa Temple. It is not located on the top of a cliff. It wasn't put together stone by stone. Instead, it was carved into a solid basalt rock. It is estimated that more than 200,000 tons of stone were carefully removed with almost surgical precision to reveal an ornate freestanding temple complex with columns, sanctums, courtyards, staircases, and intricate sculptures. All this comes from the living mountain. Dedicated to Lord Shiva, Kailasa is part of a larger cave complex that includes more than 30 monasteries and temples, Buddhist, Hindu, and Jain, carved into a single vertical rock face. But Kailasa differs not only in scale, but also in complexity. Traditional sources attribute the temple to the 8th century Rashtrakuta dynasty, King Krishna, who, according to inscriptions, commissioned its construction. But here the chronology raises questions. By some estimates, excavation and wood carving would have taken centuries, even if an army of artisans worked all year round. However, legend has it that the construction was completed in a small fraction of that time, according to some stories, for 18 years. Is this even possible? How could ancient craftsmen plan such precise excavations from top to bottom without modern tools, drawings, or equipment? A single miscalculation, one corner slightly displaced, one column installed incorrectly, and the entire structure could collapse or fall into disrepair. And then there are the details. Sculptures of deities and mythological scenes encircle the temple walls, fluid, expressive, alive with movement. It seems that elephants support the base of the temple. The columns rise with perfect symmetry. The halls correspond to the balance sheet. All of this is carved not as assembled parts, but as a single, continuous creation. There are no joints, no seams, only stone created by human vision, and perhaps something more. Some suggest that the ancient builders had forgotten techniques, acoustic instruments, or stone softening techniques. Others have questioned whether a place predates its official chronology, built on earlier foundations that go back further than we dare imagine. There is no written evidence to explain how this was done. No detailed plans, only the monument itself towering in silence, untouched by time. Was it pure loyalty that guided the hands of its creators? Was it ambition, artistry, or something we don't understand anymore? The Kailasa temple offers no answers, only awe. And when the light shines through the high walls of the cutting yard, one can only wonder if it is a legacy of extraordinary craftsmanship or a message from an era of craftsmanship that we have yet to rediscover. And from the sunlit courtyards of Kailasa, carved in sacred basalt, we now move beneath the surface of the earth into darkness, into silence, into a mystery discovered not by archaeologists or scientists, but by chance. In 1992, a curious discovery was made in the quiet village of Xianbei in China's Zhejiang province. Local residents who were draining what they thought were ordinary ponds discovered something completely unexpected: huge carved chambers hidden underwater. As more was revealed, a deeper truth was revealed. These weren't natural caves. These were the Longyou caves, an underground complex unlike anything else in China or the ancient world. To date, 24 such premises have been found. Each of them is massive in size, some reaching 30 millimeters in height. The walls, ceilings, and supporting columns are carved with striking uniformity, all bearing the same distinctive pattern. Parallel diagonal chisel marks cover each surface with mathematical precision. Yet there is no historical evidence to explain them. No ancient text, no oral tradition, no name associated with their creation. For countries with such a rich and carefully described history, the silence surrounding the Longyou caves is as amazing as the structures themselves. Why were they built? Who created them? And how, with the tools that were thought to be available at the time, were such vast expanses excavated so flawlessly? According to the most conservative estimates, more than 1 million cubic meters of stone were removed completely without any traces. There is no sign of where the wreckage was taken, no nearby piles of debris, or supporting infrastructure. The logistics of such an operation would be complex even today. Popular theories suggest that these may have been ancient vaults, underground shelters, or even tombs, although no human remains, artifacts, or markings have been found inside. Others suggest that they may have had ceremonial purposes or were part of an ancient engineering experiment lost in time. However, secrets remain. Why such uniformity? Why such a large scale and effort, if not for something very important? And why did these rooms remain hidden, completely unknown for thousands of years, even to those who lived directly above them? More speculative voices suggest that the caves may be older than we think, and built by a long-vanished civilization, perhaps one whose history was never recorded or deliberately erased. Some draw comparisons to other megalithic sites around the world, wondering if there might have been a forgotten era of global knowledge, a time when stone and silence spoke louder than words. There is no evidence for this, but there is no evidence against it. The Longyou caves remain one of the most mysterious man-made structures ever found, not because of what they have, but because of what they don't have. No inscriptions, no artifacts, no narrative, just carved stone, immaculate symmetry, and endless silence. And so the question remains open. Were these halls shaped by ritual, necessity, or hands guided by a purpose we can no longer fathom? Whatever the truth, one thing is clear. Beneath the ground of a quiet Chinese village lies a story that we still haven't begun to understand. And as the caves of Longyou sink into the silence of the earth, a new mystery rises from the depths of the sea, a riddle carved not in stone, but made of metal and gears. In the warm waters off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera, divers in 1901 discovered an object that forever changed our understanding of ancient technologies. What they found was a rusted and fragmented mechanism, now known as the Antikythera mechanism. The device is so complex that it has remained largely obscure for decades. At first glance, the object appears unremarkable, just a collection of bronze gears that have rusted to the point of being a messy pile of scrap metal. But upon closer inspection, the structure begins to reveal hidden complexity. The gears, precise and finely machined, are arranged in a way that suggests an advanced understanding of mechanics and astronomy. Some of the teeth on the gears are so small and precise that only modern tools could reproduce their accuracy. Today, we understand that the Antikythera mechanism is an ancient analog computer designed to predict the motion of stars, planets, and even the cycles of the moon. It is believed to have been built around 100 BC, although its design and functions indicate a complexity far beyond what was thought possible at the time. The device contains a system of 30 interconnected bronze gears placed in a wooden frame the size of a shoebox. It is thought to have been used to track astronomical events, possibly to predict eclipses or the position of Pluto, and may have been part of a broader tradition of Greek technological innovation. This is one of the earliest known examples of gear mechanisms, a technology that only appeared in Europe in the Middle Ages, more than 1,000 years later. But while its function is partially understood, many questions remain unanswered. How did the ancient Greeks develop such a device, and why? The complexity of the Antikythera mechanism suggests a knowledge of mechanical engineering that seems out of place in the ancient world. Was it the result of exceptional genius, or part of a long-lost tradition of scientific discovery that was lost over time? Some suggest that the mechanism was not just an astronomical instrument, but a navigation aid that guided ships through the starry sky, allowing sailors to track time and their location in the vast expanses of the Mediterranean Sea. Others suggest that it was a form of ancient calculation used to calculate and map not only the heavens, but perhaps a deeper hidden understanding of time itself. However, the biggest mystery may lie in the question of its origin. The device is extremely complex, but no other examples of such technology have been found in the ancient world. Was the Antikythera mechanism a product of an isolated advanced civilization? Or was it the result of knowledge passed down from a lost or forgotten tradition? Some do admit the possibility of the influence of a civilization much older than the Greek one, perhaps one whose achievements were erased by time, war, or natural disaster. How could such knowledge, so advanced for its time, be lost to the history of Ptolemy, only to be rediscovered a century ago? And what does the existence of the Antikythera mechanism say about the true capabilities of ancient civilizations? We are left to wonder if this device was an anomaly or a glimpse of forgotten scientific greatness buried beneath layers of history awaiting rediscovery. The Antikythera mechanism continues to ask questions that it cannot yet answer. And starting from the complex gears of the Antikythera mechanism, we turn our gaze to the east, to an object so simple in appearance but so mysterious in its consequences that it has challenged our understanding of ancient technology for more than a century. In the heart of Iraq near Baghdad in 1938, an archaeologist named Wilhelm Koenig discovered a small but curious artifact. What he found was a clay jug, not unlike many other clay vessels found in ancient excavations. But inside this jar, among its contents, was a small copper cylinder, as well as an iron rod and a cork. Together, these elements formed a simple but intriguing device. It was quickly dubbed the Baghdad Battery. At first, the object seemed unremarkable, just another relic from the distant past. However, when Koenig and later researchers began to study it, something remarkable began to emerge. It turned out that this ancient vessel may have once functioned as a rudimentary galvanic cell, a primitive battery. The mechanism was simple but effective. When filled with an acidic solution, such as vinegar or wine, the copper and iron components react chemically to form a small electric current. This would create a weak electric charge, sufficient for use in elementary electrical applications. The consequences were profound. If the Baghdad battery were really a type of battery, it would predate the invention of the electric battery by more than 2,000 years. A technological breakthrough that wasn't repeated until the 18th century, when Alessandro Volta invented the modern battery. But questions soon piled up. What was the battery used for? There are no records or written documentation explaining its purpose. Some researchers believe it may have been used for electroplating, an ancient method of coating objects with thin layers of metal. Others have suggested that it may have had a religious or ceremonial use, perhaps causing a small electrical discharge to induce a trance-like state, or as a form of divine power. More speculative theories suggest that the Baghdad battery was used for something far more extraordinary, such as powering unknown devices, or perhaps even as a tool for medical procedures such as cauterizing wounds. Still others assume that the knowledge needed to create such a device was part of a lost or forgotten science hidden from history. But if the Baghdad battery was indeed an electrical device, why didn't it evolve into a widespread technology in the ancient world? Why was it forgotten for millennia? The artifact raises as many questions as it does answers. Maybe was this just an isolated case of early experiments with electricity? Or perhaps there were more sophisticated devices hidden beneath the layers of history, knowledge of which was lost due to time, war, or neglect. And if it was a battery, then what other technologies were ancient civilizations capable of, but could not pass on? The Baghdad battery, with its simple design, remains an eternal mystery, a small artifact that has sparked a debate about the true technological excellence of ancient cultures. This makes us wonder what else might have been discovered in the ancient world. What knowledge and innovations have yet to be revealed, or were deliberately hidden? The answer, like many ancient mysteries, remains simply out of reach. And as we leave behind the Baghdad battery, the instrument of an ancient electrical miracle, we now turn our attention to something much more delicate. The site is so small yet so shrouded in mystery that it has caused decades of controversy among archaeologists, engineers, and theorists alike. In the sands of Saqqara, an ancient necropolis south of Cairo, an unusual discovery was made in 1898. During the excavation of a tomb belonging to the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, a small object with intricate carvings was found. A figure similar to a bird, with wings spread wide as if preparing for flight. Initially, it was assumed that the object, made of wood with traces of gold leaf, is a simple decoration or some kind of model. But over time, it became known as the Bird of Saqqara and came to symbolize one of the most mysterious mysteries of ancient technology. At first glance, the bird seems relatively simple. Its shape is clearly inspired by a bird in flight with long pointed wings and a body tapering to a beak. It's an amazing piece, expertly crafted. But what attracts the most attention is what doesn't seem to fit. Two small, neatly arranged holes in the back of the figurine. When scientists began to study the Saqqara bird more closely, they realized that these holes were not random. They seemed functional, perhaps part of a larger system designed to interact with wind or air currents. Some have suggested that the object was not just an ornament, but a flight model, perhaps even a scale model of an ancient airplane. Others thought it might have been a symbolic representation of flight, linking it to Egyptian mythology, where birds were once seen as symbols of the soul's journey to the afterlife. But things took an even more curious turn when engineers became interested in the bird's potential aerodynamics and began experimenting with it. Some claimed that if you put a Saqqara bird on a rod or string and lowered it from a certain height, it would glide through the air, resembling the flight of an airplane. The bird in these experiments appears to have possessed some aerodynamic properties, suggesting that its ancient creators may have understood the concepts of flight and movement in the air in a way that challenged conventional historical knowledge. Was it just the result of artistic inspiration, or did it suggest something much more extraordinary? Could this small artifact actually be a prototype for flight? Was it a symbolic item, a talisman of the heavens? Or could it represent an ancient attempt to harness the forces of air and lift? The possibilities seem endless. The main explanations focus on the fact that the bird from Saqqara was a simple model or toy, perhaps even a ceremonial object associated with Egyptian beliefs about flight or the afterlife. But the controversy doesn't end there. Some have suggested that the bird was a functional flying model, perhaps a distant ancestor of gliders from later centuries, lost to history until they were discovered by modern archaeology. Others indicate the lack of clear evidence for the existence of such technology in ancient Egypt, suggesting that it was most likely an artistic or religious symbol rather than a practical tool. However, despite many theories, there is no definitive answer. No inscriptions or written evidence explain the bird's purpose, and no other similar objects have been found in a similar context. As a result, the Saqqara bird remains a mystery, a tantalizing glimpse into an ancient world that may have understood flight in ways we have yet to fully understand. What if the ancient Egyptians had knowledge or tools that we have long forgotten? What if this bird was part of a larger tradition of flight experiments lost in the sands of time? Or was it simply a product of the ancient imagination, far more symbolic than practical, created in honor of the gods and the mysteries of heaven? Since today the Saqqara bird rests in a museum, its wings spread wide in silence, he invites us to ask, what other secrets might be hidden in the artifacts of the past that are waiting to be discovered, one secret at a time? And while the bird from Saqqara silently flutters through the museum, suspended in time, another mysterious object rises from the depths of the ancient world. One that isn't on museum shelves, but is buried underground in a remote corner of China. Here, in the mountains of Bayan Karula in the 1930s, a discovery will be made that has captivated researchers, dreamers, and conspiracy theorists for decades. The object in question is known as drop stones. Small round discs, each no bigger than a dinner plate, were found hidden in a series of caves in the Bayan Karula mountain range, which runs along the border between China and Tibet. At first glance, these stones seem unremarkable, rough, ancient, and worn by time. However, it was the markings etched on their surfaces that caused such intrigue. Each stone has a series of spiral grooves that twist inwards toward the center, resembling a kind of writing or code. The story of the drop stones begins with a group of archaeologists led by Dr. Chi Pute, who in 1938 unearthed these strange discs in caves. According to reports, the rocks were unlike anything seen before. When the researchers tried to decipher the inscriptions, they were disappointed. The symbols did not resemble any known script or language, but the surprise was not only caused by their design. These were stories related to their discovery. Local legends told of an ancient encounter with extraterrestrials, and that the Dropa people, a mysterious tribe that lived in this region long ago, were visited by beings from the stars. It has been suggested that the stones were a form of communication left behind by these posthittles. Some have suggested that the grooves in the stones were not just writing, but a star map guiding their visitors back to the distant world they came from. Further intrigue arose when researchers noticed that, despite the apparent age of the stones, their material did not resemble any typical stone used by people of that era. The drop stones were made of a metal alloy unknown in the local area, and their smooth, polished surfaces were far more refined than was possible for the people of the tribes who supposedly created them. Were these really ancient artifacts, or perhaps they came from somewhere else entirely? Some interpretations suggest that these signs may represent a form of proto-writing, an ancient communication system not yet recognized by modern linguists. Others have gone further, suggesting that the grooves may be a form of binary code, similar to the type of encoding used in modern computers. This is a striking connection to the idea that the stones may have been tools or deposits left behind by a much more advanced civilization, potentially from another world. Mainstream scientists, however, are much more skeptical. Many reject the idea of extraterrestrial intervention, suggesting that the stones could simply be ancient, unencrypted writings from a lost culture. Some even doubt whether the stones are real or not, and the drop stones are generally authentic, as various reports suggest they may be hoaxes. Carefully fabricated or misinterpreted local folklore and existing artifacts. However, despite the controversy, the secret remains intact. No definitive answers have emerged, and the drop stones remain largely unexplained. Where did they come from? Who left them? And why were they just a product of a vanished culture? Or is there something much weirder involved? The stones are buried in private collections, hidden from prying eyes, their secrets locked away, until one day someone can finally decipher their message. What if the drop stones aren't just relics of an ancient civilization, but the key to a much bigger mystery? A puzzle left behind by a forgotten people, or perhaps from a world beyond our own? In the silence of the mountains, where the wind whispers in the trees, the answer may still be waiting in the wings. And as the secrets of the drop stones continue to echo with the whispers of the unknown, another mystery emerges from the depths of time. This one is not hidden underground, but is located inside it, in layers of a world much older than we might expect. In London, Texas, in the summer of 1934, a couple exploring the bed of a small stream near their home made a curious discovery. While collecting rocks, they came across a strange object embedded in a piece of limestone, partially buried in the ground. At first, they thought it was an oddly shaped stone, but upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a wooden hammer, surprisingly well preserved. The hammer was unlike any other. Its wooden handle has partially rotted away over the millennia, but the iron tip remains intact and sharp. What attracted the attention of local researchers and geologists was not only the preservation of the hammer, but also the strata in which it was found. The formation, buried deep in the Cambrian rocks, is estimated to be more than 500 million years old. The consequences were immediate and profound. It was assumed that 500 million years ago, long before the heyday of human civilization AI, there were no modern tools made of metal, let alone the tools used by such civilizations. This seemingly anachronistic hammer has seriously challenged the established chronology of human history. Conventional explanations suggest that the hammer is simply an artifact of a later date, possibly embedded in the rock as a result of human activity or natural processes. The theory of intrusive artifacts suggests that the hammer may have been moved into the thickness of ancient rocks as a result of natural erosion or geological shifts. While this explanation leaves many questions unanswered, there is still something unsettling about the state of the hammer. Despite the fact that the iron head is buried in the ancient as a rock, there are no significant signs of corrosion, which would be expected from such exposure to the elements for millions of years. The workmanship of the handle, although worn, suggests a level of sophistication that does not correspond to the primitive tools of the Cambrian period. The wood itself corresponds to the materials used in the manufacture of historical tools, and not to ancient life forms. Could it be a relic of an ancient culture lost in time? Or perhaps an instrument of a much older, forgotten civilization, whose history was wiped off the face of the earth by some global catastrophe? Further reasoning goes even further beyond conventional thinking. Some theorists suggest that the hammer may have been made by extraterrestrials, suggesting that such tools could have been brought to Earth from another planet. Others suggest the possibility that the hammer is part of a vanished advanced civilization, whose presence on Earth predates everything we know, perhaps even older than the dinosaurs themselves. Could this artifact be the key to a forgotten era? Or even to a timeline where human or non-human intelligence existed long before we believed? However, there is no conclusive evidence to support these more speculative theories. The existence of the hammer remains one of the most discussed and mysterious finds in the field of anomalous archaeology. Why was such a tool found in such ancient rocks? What civilization could have created it? And why, despite its incredible age, does it show no signs of being a product of something much older than human history? Although the hammer is in the collection of a local museum, it continues to challenge our understanding of the history, time, and forces that shaped our world. Its simple, robust construction remains a silent witness, one of many artifacts scattered across time. Each of them invites us to ask what else is hidden beneath the layers of earth waiting to be discovered. And while the London hammer rests in its quiet, timeless mystery, another landmark is in the heart of Egypt, where ancient stone carvings and hieroglyphs speak not of gods and kings, but perhaps of something far more extraordinary, an inexplicable phenomenon that expands the boundaries of our understanding of the ancient world. At the Temple of Hathor in Dendera, a sprawling complex dedicated to the Egyptian goddess of love, music, and motherhood. One carving has attracted the attention of historians, engineers, and conspiracy theorists alike. It shows what looks like an electric light bulb, an intricate, almost modern-looking device that two figures hold aloft in a scene that seems completely out of place in an ancient temple. The Dendera lamp, as it has come to be called, is located on the ceiling of one of the inner rooms of the temple. The carving shows a serpentine object, which some interpret as a cable or wire connected to the base of the structure in the form of bows and arrows. The light bulb is held by two figures who appear to be performing some sort of ritual, their hands reaching out to an object that appears to glow. At first glance, this may seem like an ordinary symbolic representation, a metaphorical representation of the sun, light, and the power of divine illumination. After all, the Egyptians were known for their rich symbolism, and their gods were often associated with the sun and light. However, what catches your eye is the uncanny similarity of this item with a modern electric light bulb, an object that hasn't been invented in millennia. This image has led some to wonder if the ancient Egyptians might have had access to electrical technology long before it was discovered in modern times. Leading Egyptologists reject this idea, explaining the carving as a stylized symbol of creation or the divine light of the gods, interpreting the light bulb as nothing more than an artistic representation of the sun's rays or spiritual enlightenment. According to this view, the serpent may represent the sun god Ra, and the figures can simply participate in the symbolic act of connecting to the divine power, and not to electricity. However, the theory of electrical engineering in ancient Egypt is not so easy to dismiss. Some proponents of alternative theories point to the object's seemingly modern design and suggest that it may represent a real source of electric light, perhaps something similar to the arc lamps used in early electric lighting. Could the ancient Egyptians have known about such technology, using it for ceremonial purposes, perhaps as part of a secret or lost tradition of scientific knowledge? Others suggest that the Denderian light is part of a larger scheme of lost ancient technology, possibly linked to an advanced civilization that predates the dynastic period of Egypt, capable of harnessing a power far beyond what we know. Could this civilization have used electricity in rituals, perhaps in their temples or tombs, to create light at a time when the world relied on torches and lamps? Such ideas are, of course, highly speculative and lack concrete evidence to support them. The absence of any physical artifacts associated with this alleged technology leaves the question open, and, as is often the case with ancient mysteries, assumptions can only go so far without additional evidence. So we are left to wonder if this ancient symbol of light could really represent something far beyond the capabilities of the Egyptian people. Or is it just a metaphor for divine illumination, the idea of light as a symbol of spiritual power? As the carvings on the temple walls remain unchanged, the light of Dendera continues to burn in the minds of those who wonder what might still be hidden in the depths of ancient history. Truth, like light itself, can remain elusive, shrouded in the sands of time. And while the light of Dendera flickers in the shadow of speculation, we turn to another mysterious artifact. One of them is located not in a majestic temple, but on the quiet ruins of an ancient civilization, far from the bustling centers of Egypt and Mesopotamia. Here in the southern region of Iraq, near the city of Ubaid, lies a secret that seems to transcend the human world. In the early 20th century, excavations at the ancient settlement of Ubaid uncovered a series of small figurines, intricate handmade sculptures that seem to defy simple classification. At first glance, it seems that these are images of human figures, but on closer inspection, their faces, bodies, and especially their eyes suggest something much stranger. Ubaid figurines are often described as depicting lizard-like creatures with large, bulging eyes and angular reptilian features. Their bodies are slender, with elongated limbs and exaggerated, often constrained postures. The level of detail and unsettling nature of the figures have led many to wonder about their true meaning. The figurines are believed to date back to the Ubaid period, a time that lasted from about 5,000 to 4,000 BCE, long before the Sumerians and the great civilizations of Mesopotamia. The Ubaid culture itself remains somewhat mysterious, as its history is virtually unrecorded. What is known is that these early humans were skilled in pottery, agriculture, and handicrafts, and their society laid the foundations for the more famous cultures that followed. But what can we do with these lizard men? Leading archaeologists have suggested that the figurines are simply stylized images of people, possibly created for religious or ritual purposes. Some believe that the exaggerated features of the figures, such as their large eyes, may have been intended to symbolize spiritual vision or a connection to the divine, drawing on the human tendency to attach symbolic meaning to objects. However, the reptilian features of the Ubaid figurines have given rise to alternative theories that go far beyond conventional interpretations. Some have suggested that these figures represent extraterrestrial beings, suggesting that ancient cultures may have encountered or been influenced by extraterrestrial visitors. This theory is based on the idea of ancient astronauts, the hypothesis that highly evolved beings from other planets visited Earth in prehistoric times, leaving behind clues in the form of strange objects, artifacts, symbols, and structures. Other theories point to the possibility that the Ubaid lizardmen may have been members of an ancient forgotten race, perhaps even a type of humanoid reptile whose presence on Earth has been lost to time. From this point of view, the figurines would not just be symbolic, but could reflect a real physical race of beings that coexisted with, or perhaps even interacted with, early humans. However, no evidence has been found to support any of these more fanciful claims. The figurines themselves remain the only clues to the mystery behind their creation, and without the accompanying written notes to clarify the context, their true purpose remains as elusive as ever. What did the people of Ubaid try to convey with these strange, otherworldly figures? Were they meant to honor a forgotten god? Or perhaps they were formed as a result of cultural contact with something far beyond our understanding? And why, out of all the possible life forms, did they choose to create creatures with such reptilian traits? Ubaid's lizardmen figurines are more than just artifacts. They are fragments of a forgotten world that still stand in silence, waiting for us to interpret their meaning. Whatever the truth behind them, one thing is for sure: they raise more questions than they answer, making us wonder if the secrets of the past might not be stranger than we can imagine. And while the Ubaid lizardman figurines remain frozen in their strange and silent mystery, another ancient object calls out to us from the depths of history, a simple but incredibly significant artifact that has raised questions not only about the past, but also about the very foundations of human civilization. In the highlands of Bolivia, near the shores of Lake Titicaca, a mysterious bowl was discovered in the 1950s, the one that would later become known as the Cup of Fuente Magna. This is a beautifully crafted ceramic bowl with a diameter of about 30 centimeters, which stands out not for its craftsmanship, but for the writing engraved on its surface. The symbols carved on the bowl are unmistakably Sumerian cuneiform, one of the earliest writing systems known to mankind, used by the ancient Sumerian people in Mesopotamia around 3500–3000 BC. The Cup of Fuente Magna was found in South America, on a continent far removed from the ancient world of Sumer. The age of the bowl, the style and language of the inscriptions suggest that it may have originated more than 5,000 kilometers away from where the Sumerians once flourished. How then did these Sumerian inscriptions appear on a bowl found in the heart of the Andes? Leading scientists are wary of such an unusual statement. The chalice is believed to date back to the Tiwanaku culture, which flourished in the Andes around 1000 BC, long before the Sumerians developed their cuneiform writing system. One explanation is that the cup may have been an object of trade, a ceremonial item passed between distant cultures, possibly as an artifact of exchange. This theory suggests that the Tiwanaku people may have had contact with the ancient Sumerians or their descendants, although no evidence of such contact has been found. However, the mystery becomes even deeper. When the Fuente Magna bowl was first examined, experts noted not only the presence of Sumerian symbols, but also Proto-Sumerian symbols, older forms of cuneiform writing that predated Sumerian civilization itself. This raises the possibility of an even earlier connection between America and the Old World, a theory that challenges the traditional understanding of ancient history. Some theorists suggest that the Fuente Magna bowl may be the remnant of an ancient, extinct civilization that had the ability to travel vast distances across oceans, connecting distant cultures long before such travel was possible. Could it be that the ancient inhabitants of the Andes were in contact with the civilizations of the Middle East, perhaps even before the rise of the Sumerians? Others have suggested that the script may have been adopted and adapted by the Tiwanaku people, who may have developed their own version of cuneiform for ceremonial purposes, just as other ancient cultures adopted foreign characters for their own use. Still, there are those who consider even more speculative possibilities, such as the theory that the Fuente Magna bowl is evidence of a pre-Columbian transoceanic voyage, during which ancient civilizations from Mesopotamia or other regions sailed to the Americas and left behind cultural remnants, perhaps unknowingly or intentionally. Regardless of theory, the cup of Fuente Magna raises questions about the flow of knowledge and culture in the ancient world. Was the flow of civilization really as isolated as we were led to believe? Or were the connections between distant peoples more complex than we think? Today, the bowl is in a museum. Its surface still holds its secrets, and the inscriptions are completely unreadable. When we look at it, we can only wonder if it was just an item of trade, a symbol of cultural exchange, or if it was evidence pointing to a much older, much more interconnected world than we have ever known. What other stories might be hidden beneath the surface of this ancient artifact, waiting to be told? And as the cup of Fuente Magna whispers its mysterious origins from the depths of the Andes, another mystery is revealed, a secret that lies not in stone or clay, but in paper, ink, and an untranslatable font. In the early 20th century, a rare and confusing manuscript was discovered in the rare rooms of a private library known as the Beinecke, Library of Rare Books and Manuscripts. This work has baffled scientists, linguists, and cryptographers for centuries, and remains one of the most perplexing unsolved mysteries in the world of ancient texts. The manuscript itself is a small hand-bound book, about 240 pages long, filled with vivid illustrations of strange plants, astronomical diagrams, and curious human figures. Its pages are heavily covered with an unknown font, a series of glyphs that defy any known language or cipher. No one has ever been able to decipher its spelling definitively. No one can say for sure who wrote it, when, or why. The manuscript is named after Wilfrid Voynich, the antiquarian who purchased it in 1912, although its provenance dates back to the 15th century and possibly earlier. Radiocarbon dating of the parchment has established that it was created from about 1404 to 1438 AD. Although the specifics of its authorship remain unclear, it has been suggested that the manuscript may have been created by an alchemist, scholar, or copyist. But her goal is even more elusive. What makes Voynich's manuscript so strange is not just the unreadable font, but the content itself. Botanical illustrations, for example, show plants that don't seem to exist anywhere in nature. Plants with whimsical features that combine the characteristics of famous species with absolutely fantastic features. Some drawings suggest a deep understanding of plant life, but no known plant can be identified. Astronomical diagrams are also confusing. They appear to represent the stars, sun, and moon, but with strange variations and arrangements that don't fit any known system of astrology or astronomy. There are even human figures in the manuscript, sometimes depicted engaged in strange activities, such as swimming in pools of water, surrounded by bizarre symbols, or interacting with unusual machines. This combination of obscure text, strange drawings, and unfamiliar concepts has led many to wonder about its origins. Was it a product of a vanished civilization whose knowledge we have yet to uncover? Or could it have been a work of fiction, an elaborate hoax designed to mystify and mislead? Cryptographers, linguists, and computer scientists have spent decades trying to crack the code of the manuscript text. Some believe that it's an artificial language, possibly created for a secret society or for ritual or religious purposes. Others have suggested that it may have been the work of one brilliant man whose writings were deliberately designed to be confusing. More speculative theories suggest that the Voynich manuscript is not of human origin at all, that it could have been an alien language, a message from extraterrestrial beings left for humanity to decipher. Despite decades of intensive study, the manuscript defies any attempt at translation. The handwriting does not correspond to any known language or cipher, ancient or modern, and attempts to compare it with other texts have been futile. Some cryptographers have even used artificial intelligence to try to identify patterns in the text, but no one has cracked its code yet. The secrets of the manuscript lie both in the questions it raises and in the answers it refuses to give. Who wrote this? Why? What knowledge does it contain, if any? Could it be an ancient code, a map of hidden wisdom, or a lost chapter of human history? While the manuscript is stored in the vaults of the Yale University Library, its pages filled with symbols and images, it appeals to those who are willing to listen. But perhaps the greatest mystery of all lies not only in the text itself, but also in the question of why such a document was created, why it was hidden, why it was preserved, and why a century later it remains unsolved. What if the Voynich manuscript is not just a book, but a key? One that, when revealed, will change our understanding of history, language, and knowledge itself. Or perhaps it's just a riddle designed to remain unanswered, forever mysterious. And as the Voynich manuscript holds its secrets in impenetrable code, another strange and mysterious text rises from the depths of history, this time from the heart of Central Europe. In the 19th century, an even more mysterious document was discovered among the hilly terrain of Hungary, the Rohonc Codex. A small leather-bound book filled with intricately drawn illustrations in a completely unknown font was discovered in 1838 by the Hungarian scientist Károly Embori. Although its origin remains shrouded in Tainoi, despite its uncertain beginning, the Rohonc Codex has survived as one of the most enigmatic texts in the world. Unlike the Voynich manuscript, which primarily attracts attention for its unknown typeface, the Rohonc Codex is no less interesting for its combination of whimsical illustrations and a completely unique writing system never seen before or since in human history. At first glance, the illustrations in the Codex are striking in their variety and complexity. The pages are filled with intricate images of animals, human figures, and symbolic scenes. Some are reminiscent of medieval European images, while others are reminiscent of distant and unknown lands. There are images of ritual ceremonies, military operations, and creatures that appear to be mythological, all of which raise more questions than answers. These images alone would make the code intriguing, but it's a script that really defies any attempt at understanding. The writings are a series of symbols and glyphs, some of which resemble ancient runes, while others seem completely invented. Despite numerous attempts to decipher it over the years, no linguist or historian has been able to determine its meaning or connection to any known language. The text does not correspond to any known writing system, whether ancient or modern, and does not seem to follow any linguistic patterns, leaving researchers to speculate about its origin. Some theories suggest that the Rohonc Codex may have been created by an isolated sect or religious order, possibly in the medieval period, with symbols representing a completely unique language, perhaps even a secret code. Others suggest that it was a work of artistic imagination created by an individual or group for some personal or ritual purpose, although no one knows why they needed to create such a complex and indecipherable language. Other minor theories point to even more tempting ideas. Some believe that the Codex may indicate the existence of extinct civilizations, suggesting that the text is a remnant of a culture that disappeared before it could pass on its knowledge to subsequent generations. Others suggest that writing is of extraterrestrial origin, a communication system left by beings far beyond Earth's shores, offering a clue that humanity has yet to uncover. The whimsical nature of the images and their seemingly otherworldly qualities only fuel these theories. Despite the fact that the Rohonc code is now being studied by scientists, cryptographers, and even computer scientists, it still defies explanation. Some claim that this is a medieval hoax, possibly created as a work of art or a religious manuscript designed to confuse or intimidate. Others believe that its meaning is simply waiting to be revealed, buried under centuries of misinterpretation. Currently, the Codex is kept in the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, and its pages still keep their secrets. When we look at it today, it remains an open question whether it could be that the Rohonc Codex is not just a relic of an obscure period of history, but a key to understanding something much larger, an unknown history or knowledge that has been locked up for reasons lost to time. Or perhaps it's just a puzzle created by a mind, or minds whose purpose remains as mysterious as the symbols which they left behind. In the quiet corners of libraries and archives, the Rohonc Codex awaits you. It continues to draw us in, whispering secrets that we can't yet hear. And since the Rohonc Codex is preserved in the quiet archives of history, and its unreadable font is a testament to the lost knowledge of mankind, we now turn to another artifact that has baffled scientists and archaeologists for more than a century. A small, but unusually complex disc found on the island of Crete. In 1908, while excavating the Minoan palace at Phaistos, archaeologist Luigi Pernier discovered an object that later became a symbol of one of the most fascinating mysteries of the ancient world, the Phaistos Disc. This small, circular tablet, made of baked clay, is covered on both sides with a series of spirals, each containing 45 different symbols. The symbols are arranged in what appears to be a form of writing, but this is unlike any known writing system, be it ancient Greek, Egyptian, or even Sumerian civilizations. The characters are clearly not random. Their organization involves a methodical, purposeful structure, as if they were part of a coherent language or system. The disc itself is only 15 cm in diameter, and two of its faces are carefully etched with these symbols, which seem to be arranged in spirals that round inwards towards the center. What makes the Phaistos disc so intriguing is not only the mystery of its writing, but also the precision with which it was produced. Its smooth surface, clear engraving, and carefully formed impressions that appear to have been stamped in clay with the stamp of a set of seals. Despite numerous attempts to decipher the characters, the language remains unencrypted. Some scholars have compared it to hieroglyphs, while others have suggested that it is an example of linear writing, although it does not correspond to any known writing system from the Aegean region or anywhere else in the ancient world. The disc's origins date back to about 1700 BC and date back to the Minoan civilization, a people known for their advanced culture, art, and trade. However, even in this context, the purpose and meaning of the disc remain elusive. Leading scholars suggest that the disc may have been a form of religious or ceremonial text, perhaps a prayer, song, or even some sort of calendar. The spiral pattern has led some to suggest that it may symbolize a cyclical shift, possibly related to astronomical or agricultural patterns common in the lives of ancient people. Others have suggested that it may be a game or educational tool, a form of learning or entertainment for the elite of Minoan society. But theories quickly diverge when we consider more secondary possibilities. Some suggest that the Phaistos disc may have been a form of lost language used not only by the Minoans, but also by a much earlier forgotten civilization. Others hold the idea that it could have been communication with extraterrestrials, a message or artifact of a CT scan from extraterrestrial aliens, encoded in a language intended to be understood only by a select few, perhaps even intended to be rediscovered millennia later. Even more provocative theories suggest that the disc is a map, perhaps a guide to ancient sites, lost cities, or places of power. Despite more than a century of research, the true nature of the Phaistos disc remains unclear. It was analyzed using the latest technologies, from radiocarbon dating to linguistic analysis using artificial intelligence. But the script resists all translation attempts. No other items with the same symbols were found, so the disc remains an isolated artifact, the full meaning of which is hidden in time. Could the Phaistos disc be the key to a lost chapter of human history? Is it a glimpse of a lost language, a forgotten culture, or perhaps even a forgotten cosmic knowledge? Or is it just a product of an ancient mind deliberately created to perpetually mystify and intrigue us? The answers remain out of reach as the Phaistos disc waits in silence. Its secrets, hidden in the sands of Crete, are whispered for those who are willing to listen and marvel at the secrets still hidden in the past. And as the mysterious symbols of the Phaistos disc continue to challenge our understanding, we will now turn to another riddle, engraved not on the disc, but on the very stone of a gatehouse in the English countryside. Here, in the quiet grounds of Shugborough Hall, a curious inscription stands in stark contrast to the peaceful surroundings. Its meaning is as elusive as the story it represents. The inscription in Shugborough appears on a monumental arch that is part of the grand design of the estate. The arch, built in the 18th century, is decorated with intricate carvings consisting of letters and symbols that do not have any clear explanation. The inscription itself, engraved on a marble slab, reads like a jumble of seemingly unrelated symbols. OUOSVAV. Beneath this curious chain of symbols is a larger symbol, the Shepherd Monument, depicting a man holding a pole surrounded by a series of mysterious symbols. At first, it may seem like a decorative or commemorative carving, perhaps a symbol of local history or a personal message from the owners of the estate. But the lack of context and the idiosyncrasy of the symbols have raised countless questions, turning it into one of the most confusing, cryptic inscriptions in Britain. Common explanations suggest that the letters may have been part of a family motto or a cryptic reference to a private matter involving the Anson family who commissioned the monument. Some argue that it may have been a form of encrypted message, a holovolumka, intended to be meaningful only to those who understood it. The monument to the shepherd, with its pastoral images, is sometimes interpreted as a reference to the story of the Old Shepherd, a poem of the time, while others believe that it may symbolize guidance or protection. However, the theory that the inscription may have been more than just a personal or poetic message has intrigued those interested in historical riddles and lost codes. Some have suggested that the Shugborough inscription may be a clue to the location of the Holy Grail, tracing the connection to the Da Vinci Code and the related idea of secret societies preserving hidden knowledge. According to this theory, the symbols on the monument may have been a coded reference to the Grail, a message left by the Knights Templar or other medieval organizations that may have been involved in the protection of such sacred relics. Others speculate that the inscription may have been part of a larger alchemical puzzle designed to uncover ancient knowledge, lost practices, or hidden truths that were meant to be deciphered only by those with a certain level of understanding. These theories often suggest that symbols are the key to a forgotten or repressed history that includes hidden spiritual or scientific knowledge. However, despite these theories, the exact meaning of the Shugborough inscription remains unsolved. The final solution has never emerged, and the lack of supporting evidence leaves a mystery in its ambiguity. Was it a simple decorative element, or is it an intentional code, a hidden message designed to stand the test of time, waiting to be rediscovered by those who can finally unravel its meaning? The Shugborough inscription, with its mysterious symbols and unbreakable silence, continues to attract attention, its true purpose still shrouded in obscurity. As the stone rests quietly in Shugborough Hall, one can't help but wonder what secrets remain hidden in these symbols, waiting for someone to discover them. Even more intriguing, who could have left them here, and why? And since the Shugborough inscription leaves us with more questions than answers, we will now turn to a place far from hilly England, an isolated island in the Pacific Ocean, where one of the most complex mysteries of ancient history lies waiting to be solved. Easter Island, known locally as Rapa Nui, is a place of striking beauty, where stone giants known as Moai stand in silence, looking out over the vast expanses of the ocean. These monumental statues are a testament to the ingenuity and spirit of the island's inhabitants. But there is another mystery hidden in the island's culture, much less visible, but no less intriguing. In the mid-19th century, European explorers came across a series of wooden tablets on the island, rongo tablets, each covered with a series of intricate symbols. These plaques, made from the wood of the Toromiro tree, were completely covered with symbols, some of which resembled pictographs, while others seemed more abstract. The symbols are engraved on wood, some deeply carved, others shallowly, and arranged in lines or columns, often with high structure, almost artistic quality. The mystery lies not in the presence of the glyphs themselves, but in their meaning. These characters, called the rongo font, appear to be a written language, but no one has been able to fully decipher them. Unlike the script of ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia, which was gradually made clear by deciphering key inscriptions, rongo remains largely illegible. Despite the many efforts of linguists, historians, and cryptographers, writing resists all attempts to understand it. The Rapa Nui script does not seem to have been inherited. By the time Europeans arrived on the island in the 18th century, the knowledge of how to read and write rongo was already lost. Some believe that writing was used for ritual purposes, perhaps as a way to preserve the oral traditions of the island's inhabitants, passed down from generation to generation in the form of chants. It is also suggested that the writings may have been used for records of important historical events, genealogies, or movements of the Moai statues themselves, which were carved and installed with great significance. But questions remain. Why was Rongo invented in the first place? Why did this remote civilization develop a written language when most of the world's other cultures at that time relied on oral transmission? And why, after it was created, the script was allowed to sink into obscurity so that even the island descendants knew nothing about it? Some mainstream theories suggest that Rongo was a unique form of memory aid, a way to help oral storytellers remember and preserve long and complex oral traditions. But that doesn't explain why the symbols were used in such a structured way, or why they were limited to a relatively small number of tablets that never seemed to be distributed throughout the island. More speculative theories suggest that Rongo was not just a written language, but a form of sacred knowledge, perhaps used to encode ancient secrets about the island's creation or the movement of stars and planets. Some have even suggested that Rongo may have been a form of communication with extraterrestrials, with symbols representing messages from beings far beyond Earth, possibly remnants of an extraterrestrial influence on the ancient world. However, despite many theories, no one has come close to solving the code. There are no Rosetta Stones or inscriptions that could help researchers. The tablets remain locked in their secrecy, each symbol a silent enigma. What was the true purpose of Rongo? Was it just a communication tool? Or was it something much deeper, connected to the island's spiritual beliefs? Or perhaps with a hidden, forgotten chapter of history? As the wind carries whispers of ancient chants across the quiet shores of Easter Island, the Rongo script remains an unread puzzle, suspended between time and mystery. What knowledge can still be hidden in its symbols? And can the key to its solution be lost forever, or wait for it to be discovered again? And while the Rongo script is silent on the shores of Easter Island, another hidden mystery is stirring underground. This time in the heart of China, in a place where the last resting place of the ancient emperor was shrouded in mystery for a long time. In Lintun, a short distance from the ancient capital of Xi'an, is the tomb of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China to unite the warring kingdoms of the region in 221 BC. His tomb, built in 210 BC, is legendary not only for its scale, but also for the great mystery that lies behind it: his surroundings. Buried under a massive earthen hill, the tomb itself remains virtually untouched by modern archaeologists. Its true contents are still hidden by layers of Earth's history, and perhaps something much more elusive. Qin Shi Huang's tomb is huge and stretches for more than 56 kilometers. It is said to be a miniature model of the emperor's empire, with rivers, mountains, and even an exact replica of his imperial palace. However, what makes it so exciting is not only the size of the silt and the fact that it has been sealed with clever traps to protect the contents from burglars, but also the stunning discovery of its terracotta army. Thousands of life-size statues of soldiers, horses, and chariots. Each of them is created separately for protections and prodder in the afterlife. These soldiers are lined up in battle formations, perfectly aligned, and each of them has a unique expression on their faces. Yet for all the grandeur of the army and its complex structure, the tomb itself remains largely unexplored. According to ancient texts, the tomb is surrounded by a mercury moat and filled with unimaginable treasures: gold, jewelry, and artifacts worthy of a god. Some reports even claim that the tomb contains the emperor's corpse, along with items that he will need for the afterlife, carefully preserved in a sealed chamber. However, despite several excavations, the tomb itself remains closed to the modern world, and authorities are wary of upsetting the delicate balance between preserving the site and revealing its secrets. So, what exactly is inside this huge undiscovered tomb? Why did it remain sealed for centuries despite the world discovering so much of the emperor's legacy? Leading scholars suggest that the tomb is full of typical burial paraphernalia, treasures, and ritual items intended to accompany Qin Shi Huang in his next life. The use of mercury, often mentioned in ancient Chinese texts, may be a symbol of the river of life and death or a method of conservation. However, there are still aspects that defy explanation. Some suggest that the tomb contains much more than the treasures and objects of a grand imperial burial. Could it be that Qin Shi Huang's tomb holds the hidden secrets of ancient science? Perhaps technologies that were lost to history. Using mercury in such large quantities suggests a deep knowledge of alchemy, perhaps even an attempt to gain immortality. Some theorists have argued that the emperor may have tried to preserve his soul or physical form through ancient unknown practices, perhaps in a way that goes beyond just preserving the body. There are even those who put forward more speculative ideas. Could the tomb hide information about extraterrestrial contacts? Was Qin Shi Huang's quest for immortality not just a desire for eternal life, but also an attempt to connect with beings beyond Earth? Could his terracotta army, so carefully constructed and placed around the tomb, guard not only his body, but also some forbidden technology or knowledge hidden to protect it from those who might abuse it? Despite the mystery and many theories, the tomb of the emperor remained practically unearthed. The government's decision to leave it untouched, despite advances in archaeological technology, shows a deep respect or fear for what might be inside. The fact that such an important and monumental tomb has yet to be fully explored only adds to the charm of the mystery. What secrets could Qin Shi Huang's tomb hold? What knowledge, treasures, or even dangers have been sealed away for thousands of years, waiting to be discovered? As silent terracotta soldiers stand guard over the tomb, their stoic expressions never changing, the question remains, what are we really afraid to find? And what will we find when the tomb is finally uncovered? And as we leave the secrets of Qin Shi Huang's tomb, immured in the sands of China, we turn to a completely different, but no less exciting discovery. This time deep in the heart of Egypt, where echoes of the ancient past still seem to speak to us, albeit in a way that we can't yet fully understand. In 1907, at the royal tomb near Deir el-Bahari, Egyptologist James Quibble and his team unearthed an unusual and frightening mummy, the one who became known as the Unknown E-Man, or more ominously, the Screaming Mummy. Unlike the perfectly preserved remains of most of the ancient Egyptian nobility, this body was discovered in a state of disturbing tension, and even after thousands of years, agony and horror can be read on its face. A mouth is a gaping mouth in what is called a scream, with eyes wide open, frozen in a silent, eternal scream. As if this person's death was violent, sudden, or traumatic. The mummy was discovered in the Valley of the Kings, in a tomb that was originally thought to belong to Tutankhamun's close relatives. However, this particular person did not have any identification marks or royal attributes. The mummification process itself was also somewhat unusual. The body was hastily wrapped and bandaged, far from the meticulous care that would have been typical of pharaohs or high-ranking officials. Moreover, its limbs were not bent, as is typical of Egyptian burial sites, but stretched out as if in a last-ditch attempt to break free. Mainstream archaeologists believe the body may have belonged to someone who was hastily buried, possibly a victim of violent death, as its remains show signs of significant trauma, both physical and possibly psychological. Some speculate that he may have been a criminal executed and hastily buried after a political coup, or someone who angered the royal family. But that explanation doesn't explain the deep fear and pain etched on his face, nor the strange circumstances surrounding his funeral. Others suggest that it may have been the tomb of a man who died in some ritualistic manner, possibly linked to the tumultuous period following the death of Akhenaten, a pharaoh known for his controversial religious reforms. Was the death of an unknown person a kind of sacrifice, a symbol of the political and religious chaos that followed the collapse of the Akhenaten regime? More speculative theories delve deeper into the supernatural. Some believe that the expression of the cry can symbolize disturbing a person's soul, suggesting that it was someone who died in a way that threatened the afterlife, perhaps a person cursed or subjected to dark rituals. Maybe the expression on this mummy's face isn't just the result of physical death, but rather a spiritual crisis, a punishment for something unspeakable that he may have done or something done to him. And then there are the minor theories. Can the screaming mummy be associated with ancient mystical rites, or even suggest a connection with extraterrestrial beings? The distorted expression of horror led some to believe that this was not an ordinary human death, but a death associated with an encounter with extraterrestrials or an ancient Taoist society. And yet, despite these wild theories, the more well-founded explanation remains the simplest. Unknown person E probably met a cruel and tragic end, and his remains reflect the horror and trauma he must have experienced before his death. But yes, this conclusion leaves questions behind. Why was he buried in such a hasty, unconventional way? What caused such a violent death? And why was his body left to express such suffering? Was this person just a victim of circumstances? Or does his mummified cry represent something much darker? While the mummified body lies in a case displayed in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, it continues to keep its secrets. Unanswered questions hang in the air, as tangible as the silence that surrounds him. What else can this long-dead man's cry tell you about his life, his death, or the hidden secrets of ancient Egypt that are still waiting to be discovered? And as the haunting expression of the screaming mummy echoes through Egyptian tombs, we now turn to a mystery that exudes an almost otherworldly charm, a mystery that seems to transcend both time and material. Crystal glasses. These carefully carved semi-transparent artifacts have aroused admiration, wonder, and suspicion for centuries. The most famous of these skulls, the Mitchell-Hedges crystal skull, was discovered in 1924 in the ruins of a Mayan temple in Lubantun by Anna Mitchell-Hedges, the daughter of British explorer Frederick Mitchell-Hedges. A skull carved from a single piece of clear quartz, almost life-size. The details are so precise that the facial features, eyebrows, nose, and teeth appear almost perfect. The skull is smooth, its surface polished to a shine that catches light, giving it an eerie, unearthly glow. It is said to be both aesthetic and functional, designed not just to represent the human form, but also to have some deeper meaning, perhaps spiritually, ritually, or even technologically. But the story of the Mitchell-Hedges skull is only the most famous. Several other crystal skulls have been discovered over the years, including the Smithsonian skull, which is housed at the Smithsonian Institution, and the Paris skull, which can be found at the Cayley Museum. Each of them is different, but they all have one thing in common. They are made from a single crystal, and each is distinguished by the same highly skilled craftsmanship that would be almost impossible to reproduce even with modern technology. Despite the clarity and beauty of the skulls, the question remains, how were they made? The accepted explanation, of course, suggests that these skulls are just relics, artifacts created by ancient civilizations, perhaps the Maya or Aztecs, using rudimentary tools. Scientists suggest that the Maya, for example, may have had the ability to shape stone using simple abrasives and tools with diamond tips, although such methods are largely speculative in nature. The skill level, however, is questionable. Although the skulls are carved with exceptional precision, modern analysis has shown that the skulls may be much older than any known Mesoamerican civilization, possibly even originating from a period predating the existence of these cultures. This gave rise to even more mystical theories. Some suggest that the skulls were created by an extinct civilization with advanced technology, which may have had access to skills and knowledge far beyond what was thought to have been available at the time. Others suggest that the skulls may have been objects of extraterrestrial origin, left as a message or tool to advance humanity. The idea of ancient advanced civilizations having knowledge of crystals and energy is a recurring theme in the speculative literature, and some speculate that these skulls may have untapped powers capable of interacting with human consciousness in ways that modern science has yet to explain. Even more intriguing are the claims that skulls have mysterious properties. Some reports claim that when certain people come into close contact with skulls, they experience vivid visions or energetic sensations, as if the skulls are somehow communicating with the observer. There are even stories of skulls being used in rituals to channel energy or reveal hidden knowledge, an idea that is consistent with ancient beliefs about the mystical properties of crystals and stones. Could these skulls have been infused with ancient wisdom, or perhaps even some form ancient technology designed to unlock the potential of the human mind? Although the skulls have been tested and analyzed by modern science, no one has been able to definitively determine the true origin or purpose of the skulls. Some skeptics claim that they were simply made in the 19th or early 20th century, possibly by skilled craftsmen with access to modern tools. But the mystery of their origin remains unsolved, leaving open the question of their true purpose. Were the crystal skulls just works of art? They represent something much more important? Perhaps a lost ancient technology or a key to some forgotten wisdom of the past? Do they have the potential to unleash forces beyond our understanding? Or are they relics of an advanced civilization, the knowledge of which we can only begin to comprehend? As light bounces off their polished surfaces, the crystal skulls continue to hold their secrets, waiting to reveal what may still be hidden in their ancient and mysterious depths. And as the crystal skulls shimmer with a mysterious glow, we move on to another discovery, one that brings us closer to the heart of ancient China, a civilization rich in history, art, and intricate rituals. In 1971, a tomb was discovered in the remote province of Hunan, which would later become one of the most amazing archaeological finds of the 20th century. This was Lady Dai's tomb, and what was found inside would reveal not only remarkable methods of preserving the ancient world, but also a fascinating insight into the life and death of a noble woman whose identity has long been lost to history. Lady Dai, also known as Xinchui, was the wife of Marquis Li Kang during the Western Han Dynasty, circa the 2nd century BC. Her tomb, discovered in the Mawangdui burial ground, was a luxurious and sacred resting place designed not only to honor her life, but also to provide for her in the afterlife. When the archaeologists first entered the tomb, they were greeted by an amazing sight. Lady Dai's body, perfectly preserved. Her skin is still firm, her hair is dark, and her features are almost alive, even though she was buried more than 2,000 years ago. The tomb itself was a marvel of ancient Chinese architecture. It was filled with a variety of artifacts, including painted silk scrolls, ceramics, and bronzes, all of which provided insight into the customs and material culture of the time. However, it was Lady Dai's mummified remains that conquered the world. Unlike Egyptian mummies, which were usually preserved with tar and bandages, Lady Dai's preservation was much more complex. Her body was covered with layers of varnish, and the grave was sealed so that no air could pass through, preserving the moisture level in the body and preventing decomposition. The mummification process was so advanced that Lady Dai's internal organs, including her heart, liver, and intestines, were carefully removed and preserved separately, just as was done with Egyptian mummies, but using their own technologies and materials. This level of preservation implied an understanding of both anatomy and chemistry that was far ahead of its time. Still, the question remained, how did such a feat become possible? Conventional explanations suggest that Lady Dai's remarkable preservation was the result of careful burial practices and advanced Han Dynasty knowledge. The Chinese have long been known for their interest in immortality and the spiritual practices associated with mixing, and it's likely that her tomb was designed so that her soul could rest peacefully forever. The tomb's design, with its sealed chambers and meticulous preservation methods, points to a culture that revered both the afterlife and the bodies of the departed. However, what continues to intrigue archaeologists and historians is the mummification itself. Unlike other cultures, such as the Egyptians, who used a relatively standard set of techniques, Chinese methods remained somewhat ambiguous. The technique of applying nail polish to Lady Dai's body requires a deeper knowledge of conservation and chemistry, which is not fully understood. Was this an isolated case of advanced knowledge, or was it part of a broader, now forgotten tradition of mummification? As researchers continue to study the tomb, they have uncovered several mysterious elements that suggest there may be more to the story. Some of the silk scrolls found near Lady Dai's body contained astrological charts and medical texts, suggesting that her burial was not just a matter of preserving her body, but also preparing for the upcoming journey. The scrolls also contained images of rituals and spiritual practices that seemed to link Lady Dai's life and death to ideas of immortality and cosmic cycles. These documents hint at an ancient belief in energy flow and balance. concepts that could link Lady Di's mummification to Qi-related practices or Taoist aspirations for longevity. Even more intriguing were the reports about the state of her body. Even though it was buried over 2 millennia ago, the level of preservation was nothing short of extraordinary. Lady Di's clothes were also well preserved. Her silk robes were still bright, as if they had been worn only recently. In fact, the preservation of its skin and internal organs has led some to speculate that the ancient methods used to preserve it may have been related to alchemy or arcane knowledge. Could this process be a combination of natural elements, such as varnish, or were more esoteric practices involved? As researchers study Lady Di's tomb and the complex array of artifacts found inside, many of them still remain wondering what the true nature of its preservation is. Was it just a cultural tradition based on an understanding of the natural sciences? Or is there a deeper hidden knowledge involved? It may be a lost form of ancient chemistry or even a recipe passed down by a secret society dedicated to life after death. And then there are those who wonder if the remarkable preservation of Lady Di's body was related to something beyond this world. Could it be that the Han Dynasty's mummification techniques were part of a broader forgotten tradition? A method that has gone beyond ordinary science to the realm of spiritual or supernatural forces? Lady Di's tomb continues to provide more questions than answers, leaving a legacy of awe and wonder that is transmitted through time. What knowledge of life, death, and immortality could be hidden in her tomb and waiting to be discovered? What ancient secrets still lie buried in the ground, waiting for the right moment to be revealed? As the mummified Lady Di rests in the silence of her tomb, we are left to wonder what else might be hidden in the rich, uncharted depths of ancient China's secrets. And as the echoes of Lady Di's mummified body make us wonder about the depths of ancient conservation methods, we will now turn to a place as mysterious as it is remote, a dry, windswept desert in southern Peru, where a barren landscape holds one of the most complex archaeological mysteries in the world. The Nazca Desert, home to the famous Nazca Lines, massive geoglyphs carved into the Earth's surface, has long been a source of wonder and intrigue. But beneath this arid space, hidden in the dry embrace of the Earth, lies a different kind of mystery. Mummies of Nazca, first discovered in the early 2000s, these ancient mummified remains have aroused both admiration and skepticism, challenging our understanding of ancient cultures and their customs. The mummies were discovered in the Nazca region near the coastal plains of Peru in a series of underground burial chambers. What makes these mummies particularly unusual is not only their preservation, but also their shape. Unlike traditional mummies, which are wrapped in cloth or preserved with embalming agents, Nazca mummies have been found with elongated heads, some of which appear to have been artificially altered in life. In addition, many mummies have 3 fingers and toes, an anatomical anomaly that only adds to the growing list of questions related to their origin. Conventional explanations suggest that the mummies are the remains of members of the Nazca culture, a civilization known for its impressive artistic achievements, including geoglyphs, as well as their elaborate ritual practices. It is believed that the people of Nazca lived between 200 BC and 600 AD, and it is believed that the mummies found in this region were probably prepared using the same mummification techniques used in other parts of the ancient world, drying the body in the heat of the Ptolemaic desert, which helped preserve the tissues and skin. However, the strange features of the mummies, especially their unusual fingers and toes, have puzzled many scientists. While elongated skulls can be attributed to cultural practices of skull deformity, a technique used by several ancient cultures around the world, 3-toed hands and 3-toed feet defy simple explanation. Could these features be the result of some form of genetic mutation? Or were they artificially reinforced as part of a ritual or belief system? The fact that these mummies appear to have been deliberately preserved in ways that go beyond conventional mummification raises the possibility that they were important figures in their own society, perhaps high-ranking personalities or spiritual leaders. Many archaeologists initially dismissed the mummies as mere hoaxes, the product of modern forgeries or distortions. However, scientific analysis has shown that the mummies are indeed authentic and date back more than 1,000 years. DNA tests confirm that the remains belong to humans, although anomalies in their appearance have raised more questions than answers. The discovery of these mummies has sparked a growing interest among those seeking an explanation that might go beyond the conventional narrative of ancient civilizations. Speculative theories began to emerge, many of them wild and unfounded. Some have suggested that the three-toed mummies represent extraterrestrial beings, offering a glimpse into a time when extraterrestrials may have visited Earth and interacted with ancient cultures. These theories are often linked to the broader narrative of ancient astronauts, which suggests that highly evolved beings from other planets influenced ancient human cultures. Is it possible that the Nazca mummies were part of a larger communication system, perhaps designed to be seen from the sky, marking the Earth with messages meant for a higher intelligence? Even more intriguing is the question of the motivation behind such a monumental effort. Why did the Nazca people spend so much energy creating these figures that could only be fully appreciated from the sky? Were these lines simply symbols of loyalty, or could they be used for something much more practical, such as guiding travelers through the desert or marking sacred trails? And then there is the question of opening the lines themselves. Despite the fact that the Rohonc Code is now being studied by scientists, cryptographers, and even computer scientists, it still defies explanation. Some claim that this is a medieval hoax, possibly created as a work of art or a religious manuscript designed to confuse or intimidate. Others believe that its meaning is simply waiting to be revealed, buried under centuries of misinterpretation. And while the mystery of the Nazca mummies remains, their three-toed feet and elongated heads still waiting in the wings, we turn to another country lying at the crossroads of ancient civilizations, where the sands of time hold an even deeper, confusing secret. In the vast desert expanses of the Tarim Basin, located in what is now Xinjiang, China, a series of remarkable mummies were discovered in the 20th century. Mummies whose very appearance challenged the conventional understanding of human migration and cultural evolution. The Tarim mummies are unlike anything usually associated with the region, offering not just a glimpse into the distant past, but also a solution to a mystery that has baffled scientists and archaeologists for decades. The Tarim Basin is a harsh and remote area, surrounded by high mountains and vast deserts. It was here, in the Uyghur Autonomous Region of China, that a remarkable discovery was made in burial mounds on the northern edge of the Taklamakan Desert. These 2,000 to 3,000-year-old mummies were found buried in dry, salty ground, where the intense climate served as a natural preservative. What makes them so unusual is not only their remarkable preservation, but also their distinctly European appearance. When the researchers discovered the mummies, they were amazed to find that the remains had strikingly Caucasian facial features, with light hair, fair skin, and elongated bodies. These were not the physical characteristics that are usually associated with the peoples of Central or East Asia. Instead, they resembled people from Europe. In particular, one mummy, known as the Chervan Man, was known for its red hair and blue eyes, giving the impression that they were not just the distant ancestors of the region's inhabitants, but possibly people who had crossed vast distances to reach this remote land. The Tarim mummies were part of a larger culture that built elaborate settlements, traded goods, and practiced a combination of funerary rites and rituals unusual for the surrounding area. They were found dressed in intricately woven woolen garments, some even displaying richly decorated fabrics that suggest the existence of an advanced, if little-known civilization. Leading scientists often explain Tarim mummies as the remains of an ancient Indo-European population that migrated east across the Eurasian steppe, reaching the Tarim Basin. They point to trade routes like the Great Silk Road, which are already under construction. They existed long before the rise of the great empires, as on the paths that these people could travel. The appearance of mummies in this case is often attributed to the slow mixing of populations over centuries of interaction that these vast trading networks have facilitated. But this explanation only skims the surface. The more we study mummies, the more questions arise. How did these people with European features end up buried in this isolated desert region? Were they part of a group that settled here long before the Han Chinese arrived? Or did they travel vast distances in waves of migration, carrying with them their genetic heritage, and what cultural customs did they have? Even more intriguing is the presence of complex burial practices that do not coincide with the customs of other early cultures of Central Asia. The Tarim mummies were buried in wooden coffins and placed in carefully arranged graves. Some of its tombs were filled with rich grave goods, such as bronze tools, textiles, and ceramics, suggesting that the culture was well-developed and involved in elaborate death and afterlife rituals. The mummies themselves were buried with strange artifacts, including wooden figurines, sacred objects, and personal items that suggest a highly developed spiritual belief system. Some researchers suggest that these people may have belonged to the Sherman tradition, when people were buried with objects meant to facilitate their journey to the afterlife, and possibly to respect their status in the tribe or community. But still, why were these practices so different? And what were the origins of such spiritual traditions? As with many ancient discoveries, marginal theories flourished around the Tarim mummies. Some argue that these mummies may not be the remains of a simple nomadic people, but evidence of a vanished civilization that was much more advanced than the surrounding cultures of that time. Could the Tarim mummies be the remnants of a forgotten kingdom or empire that once dominated the region, but their legacy has been erased by time and the ravages of history? Others have suggested that the unusual features of the mummies may indicate an even more exotic origin. Some speculate that they may represent a connection to ancient alien visitors. These ideas, while lacking strong evidence, sometimes arise from the fact that the mummy's facial features seem to contradict well-known historical patterns of migration, suggesting that these ancient peoples may have traveled or been part of a broader, more mysterious cultural movement that we are only just beginning to understand. Tarim mummies, with their mysterious origins and burial rituals, continue to fascinate and confuse those who study them. What made these people go on such a long journey, settle in such a remote desert, and leave behind such a refined culture? The answers remain elusive as the mummies rest quietly in their tombs, protected by the dry desert air. Their features still hold the secrets of a long-forgotten chapter in human history. Are they just remnants of an ancient people whose history has been lost to time? Or are they something much deeper, something that has yet to be discovered in the quicksand of the Tarim Basin? And as we leave the mysterious mummies of the Tarim Basin, we now turn our gaze to the vast arid plain, the vast desert in southern Peru, where the Nazca Lines stretch across the landscape like a grand mysterious blueprint etched into the gray earth. Visible only from above, these geoglyphs have long been an object of fascination, making you wonder about their creators, their purpose, and the meaning behind their striking drawings. The Nazca Lines are a series of huge ancient geoglyphs, shapes, outlines, and lines carved into the bottom of the Nazca Plateau Desert. They range from simple straight lines to highly complex shapes, including geometric patterns, animals, and even human-like shapes. The most famous of these is the monkey, a figure with a wriggling tail and curved limbs reaching over 100 meters in length. Other prominent figures include a hummingbird, spider, and whale. Everything is engraved with a precision that raises questions about how such detailed work could have been done more than 2,000 years ago. Discovered in the 1920s, these geoglyphs are believed to have been created by the Nazca culture between 500 BC and 500 AD. Although their full purpose and meaning remain elusive, the Nazca people were known for their advanced irrigation techniques, pottery making, and textile craftsmanship. Nevertheless, the purpose of the lines continues to intrigue archaeologists and historians. The Nazca Lines cover an area of approximately 450 square kilometers, and some of the lines stretch for miles, with many figures more clearly visible only from the sky. This led to an intriguing question. How did the inhabitants of Nazca, unable to see from the bird's-eye view available to modern humans, create such huge and intricate figures? Leading scientists offer several theories, each based on the landscape and culture of the Nazca people. One of the most widely accepted explanations is that the lines were created for ritual or religious purposes, possibly as offerings to the gods. The shapes and figures could represent deities, animals with symbolic meaning, or celestial bodies. Some scholars suggest that the geoglyphs were associated with Nazca water rituals, as water was a sacred element in the Sarid desert region. The lines may have been part of a broader spiritual system, designed to attract rain or direct the souls of the deceased to the afterlife. Astronomical theories abound as well. Some believe that the Nazca Lines coincide with the positions of the sun, moon, and stars, suggesting that they may have served as a form of astronomical calendar. Lines and figures such as the spider and monkey were associated with constellations or celestial events, possibly marking the change of seasons or important agricultural dates. This theory states that the lines were intended to help the Nazca people track the movement of the heavens, guiding them in their farming and ritual practices. But while these theories provide insight into the possible functions of the Nazca Lines, they do little to fully explain their scale or exact alignment. For how did the Nazca people manage to create such vast and precise lines in the time before modern technology? How did they ensure that the figures were perfectly aligned when viewed from above, without the possibility of aerial observation? This question has led to more speculative and controversial ideas. Some suggest that the Nazca Lines were created not only for practical purposes, but also to communicate with forces beyond the reach of man, be they gods or even extraterrestrial beings. These theories argue that the accuracy of the lines, especially their alignment with celestial bodies, may indicate that the Nazca people had a deeper understanding of the cosmos, perhaps given to them by visitors from other worlds. Such ideas are often associated with the broader ancient astronaut theory, which suggests that highly evolved beings from other planets influenced ancient human cultures. Is it possible that the Nazca Lines were part of a larger communication system, perhaps designed to be seen from the sky, marking the Earth with messages meant for higher intelligence? Even more intriguing is the question of the motivation behind such a monumental effort. Why did the Nazca people spend so much energy creating these figures that could only be fully appreciated from the sky? Were these lines simply symbols of devotion, or could they be used for something much more practical, such as guiding travelers through the desert or marking sacred trails? And then there is the question of opening the lines themselves. Although the Nazca people must have known of their existence, the modern rediscovery of these lines as planes flew over the region in the 1920s raises the possibility that the Nazca people may have used some form of visual aid to create drawings, perhaps passing on knowledge through oral tradition or secret rituals. The Nazca Lines are a testament to human ingenuity, but also a reminder of how little we actually know about the ancient world. Their meaning, purpose, and origin remain shrouded in mystery, as if they are a message from the past waiting to be deciphered. What exactly did the Nazca try to convey with these vast, intricate drawings? Were these simple religious symbols or something much deeper? An ancient language or a space communication system? And can I open something else? Hidden under the sands, he waits for the right moment to reveal his secrets. As the wind sweeps across the desert, erasing the traces of time, the Nazca Lines remain an enduring mystery. Their true purpose is beyond our reach, but still calls us from the distant past. What else can be hidden in the lines etched on the ground, waiting for us to unravel their meaning? And as the ancient Nazca Lines stretch across the Peruvian desert, casting their shadow across the land, we now turn our gaze to another mysterious natural phenomenon. A place where the earth itself seems to defy the laws of nature, where movement in its purest form becomes a silent mystery. In the heart of Death Valley, California, a curious and seemingly inexplicable phenomenon is happening at the racetrack. Sail rocks, large flat rocks, some of which weigh several hundred pounds, move mysteriously across the desert surface, leaving long footprints in their wake. These traces are not the result of human activity and do not appear to be caused by any obvious natural force. The rocks seem to slide easily along the beach, leaving footprints in the dry, cracked mud that extend up to several hundred meters. The rocks themselves seem frozen in time. It seems that their journey stretches for long periods, sometimes for several days, sometimes for decades. What makes this even more intriguing is that the rocks, despite their weight and apparent immobility, leave no visible traces of any external force, no footprints, no disturbance in the surrounding soil. They simply move, leaving only their ghostly footprints on the cracked desert surface. For many years, the mystery of sailing stones remained unsolved, and many speculated about the reason for their movement. One popular explanation that came to the surface was that the rocks were moving as a result of strong winds. It has been suggested that during particularly strong storms, rocks will be blown across the beach by strong enough gusts of wind to make them slide through the mud. This theory seemed plausible until closer inspection revealed that the tracks left by the rocks often had sharp turns and uneven paths that could not be explained by a simple gust of wind. Another possible explanation was the interaction of ice and water. In 2014, a team of scientists began a more thorough study of this phenomenon using high-speed cameras and time-lapse photography. They found that under certain conditions, thin layers of ice form overnight on the surface of the playa during cold desert nights. As the sun rose, the ice began to melt and split, creating conditions under which rocks could slide. This discovery gave a partial answer. However, this still didn't fully explain why the rocks sometimes moved in such precise and varied directions. Nor did it explain why some rocks seemed to move when the ice conditions seemed far from ideal. So while the ice theory has gained momentum, it remains only a partial explanation. What's really puzzling about sailing stones is their mysterious timing and behavior. Rocks move irregularly and unpredictably, and their movement does not seem to always correlate with weather conditions, ice formation, or wind strength. Sometimes stones remain stationary for years, only to suddenly start moving for no clear reason, while other stones move with a smoothness that seems almost purposeful, as if they are being guided by an invisible hand. This unpredictability has led some to further speculate that the sailstones may not just have been exposed to natural forces, but also interact with unknown energies. Could it be that something deeper is involved? Perhaps this is due to the Earth's magnetic properties or to the interaction of rock and mineral-rich landscape. Some peripheral theories suggest that these rocks may have moved due to Earth vibrations, shifts in the Earth's crust, or even seismic activity, which is too weak to be detected by human instruments. Could these seemingly inert objects react to forces far beyond our understanding? However, despite these theories, no one has been able to provide a definitive answer to this puzzle. Sailing stones still defy explanation, moving across the surface of the playa racetrack in a mysterious dance that remains largely unexplained by science. As more research is done, we may still find the true cause of their movement, or we may discover something even more mysterious, an answer that raises more questions than it solves. Can there be forces at work here that we are just beginning to understand? Forces that go beyond traditional explanations of wind, ice, and gravity? And if the answer goes deeper than traditional theories, what can we uncover about the very nature of motion, energy, and the Earth itself? How the stones glide silently across the desert surface, leaving their footprints behind, remains a mystery as unfathomable as the desert winds that carry them. And as the mystery of the floating stones sinks ever deeper into the shifting desert sands, we now turn to another mystery, this time carved into the very rock of the Earth. In the quiet hills of Scotland, far from the bustling cities, lies a stone that has long been the subject of intrigue and wonder. The Cochno Stone, located near the village of Old Kilpatrick, is a large flat slab of sandstone whose surface is covered with a series of intricate carvings that appear to tell the story of East Araya, or perhaps serve as a kind of map or guide. The stone measures about 5 mm long and 3 mm wide and is buried under grass and mud. But for centuries it has been a matter of local knowledge and scientific interest. It is widely believed that his carvings, which depict spirals, cup-shaped signs, and linear motifs, date back to the Neolithic period, which is more than 5,000 years old. When the Cochno Stone was first discovered in 1887, it immediately attracted attention for the complexity and variety of symbols on its surface. The carving is unlike anything else in the area and has no clear comparison to other famous Neolithic sites. The stone features spirals, cup-shaped signs, and linear motifs that suggest a deep understanding of geometry, astronomy, and possibly even sacred rituals. However, despite decades of research, the exact meaning of these designations remains as elusive as ever. Leading scholars generally view the Cochno Stone as a form of rock art representing the symbolic or spiritual beliefs of the Neolithic people who lived in this part of Scotland. Some argue that the carvings are related to astronomical coordinates and possibly used to mark the solstices or equinoxes, while others suggest that the motifs reflect a shamanic or ritualistic purpose designed to represent the life cycle or transition from life to death. Location of the stone. The view of the surrounding hills and valleys further supports the idea that it may have been a ceremonial site that occupied a significant place in the landscape. Yet despite these rational explanations, the mystery of the Cochno Stone becomes even deeper when we consider its hidden history. In the mid-20th century, during roadworks near the site, it was rediscovered, but only after its remains were buried to protect it from the weather. In the 1960s, the stone was again buried for preservation, and its exact location has been the subject of much speculation. Why was the stone hidden again after such a thorough excavation? And even more intriguing, why wasn't the Cochno Stone put on public display, despite its significance? Theories have begun to circulate suggesting that carving may have a deeper meaning, one of which may go beyond mere symbolic representations. Some researchers have suggested that the stone could be an astronomical calendar, much like the ancient megaliths of other cultures. Could the Cochno Stone be a relic of an ancient sacred system of knowledge, encrypting a map of a hidden location, or providing insight into a long-lost understanding of the heavens? Others suggest that the signs on the stone could represent a ritual or cult map indicating sacred places or the travels of religious figures. Marginal theories have pushed the mystery even further, suggesting that the Cochno Stone may hold secrets that go far beyond ancient religious beliefs. Some speculate that the carving may be some kind of message from extraterrestrials, a message from extraterrestrial beings, or a coded message intended to be understood only by those with the highest knowledge of space. Complex patterns and their symmetry, when viewed from certain angles, can be interpreted as a form of sacred geometry or a mathematical language that gives an idea of a civilization with a level of knowledge that we can hardly comprehend. The mystery of the Cochno Stone also raises questions about the nature of ancient cultural exchange. Did the Neolithic people who created the stone have knowledge or contact with distant civilizations? Perhaps even with advanced societies whose influence has spread across continents. Could these carvings represent a shared cultural legacy, lost in time, that connects us to the wider, more interconnected ancient world? While leading scholars offer a more informed interpretation of stone carving, questions remain unresolved. The Cochno Stone was deliberately hidden. It's unclear whether to protect it or keep the message on it a secret. What does it contain that we are not meant to fully understand? The stone is buried again, its symbols waiting to reveal their meaning to those who wish to see beyond the surface. Is it just an ancient artifact, a relic of a long-gone culture? Or could it be a key, the key to understanding something much deeper about the ancient world and our place in it? When we stand in front of the land where the Cochno Stone is hidden, we can only wonder what secrets remain beneath the surface, waiting to be revealed to future generations. What ancient wisdom, encoded in stone, is still waiting for us to unravel its secrets? And as the mystery of the Cochno Stone continues to inspire curiosity, we will now turn to an ancient and mysterious concept that stretches across time and space, taking us to the rich, mystical landscapes of ancient India. Here in the sacred texts and legends of one of the oldest civilizations in the world, there are stories about flying cars, powerful weapons, and sky battles. These stories describe Vimanas, mythical flying chariots that soar in the sky, often driven by gods or revered heroes. Vimanas are first mentioned in the Vedic texts, the scriptures that form the basis of Hinduism dating back thousands of years. In these texts, especially in the Rig Veda and Mahabharata, Vimanas are described as celestial vehicles capable of rapid flight, often moving between worlds and dimensions. They are depicted as amazing, highly developed machines with descriptions that seem to combine the divine with the technological. Some Vimanas are said to have possessed the ability to move at great speed, make sharp turns, and even disappear at will. They are often associated with gods, sages, and kings, who are considered the highest carriers of power and power. One of the most famous references to Vimanas comes from the Mahabharata, an ancient epic about a great war between two families. The text says that Arjuna, one of the heroes, traveled on a Vimana called Vajra, an armed flying chariot used in battles. The descriptions of Vimana in the Mahabharata and other texts are so detailed that they include motion mechanisms, navigation systems, and even weapons that seem to resemble modern airplanes or spaceships. There are reports of Vimanas capable of firing fiery weapons, capable of destroying entire armies, resembling what we might think of as modern missiles or lasers. These stories have led some scholars to speculate that the Vimanas may have been symbols, ancient technological achievements, possibly related to real, though lost, aircraft. But the question remains, were these stories symbols of divine power, or could they point to a forgotten era of advanced technology that preceded modern civilization? Mainstream historians often interpret Vimanas as mythological constructions that symbolize the divine ability to overcome earthly limitations, rather than physical objects. According to this view, Vimanas represent the power of the gods to travel through the heavens and between worlds, which echoes the concept of the divine chariot found in many ancient cultures. However, these interpretations often fail to explain the highly technical nature of descriptions, including the complex details of their design and functionality. This gap between myth and reality has led to a surge of speculative theories. Some argue that the Vimanas were ancient flying machines, possibly built by a highly advanced civilization that existed long before the written history that we know today. These theories claim that the Vimanas may have been powered by some form of lost energy or outdated technology capable of harnessing forces that modern science is only beginning to understand. Could Vimanas have been part of an ancient spacecraft culture? The one who used these ships to travel not only on Earth, but also in space. Further adding to the mystery, some minor theories suggest that the Vimanas were alien ships, given their descriptions of modern weaponry and seemingly supernatural abilities. According to this theory, the Vimanas may have been the vehicles of alien visitors who shared their knowledge with ancient Indian civilizations, leaving behind a trail of mythical stories that were passed down from generation to generation. However, despite many existing theories, no conclusive evidence has emerged to support the existence of Vimanas as physical objects. Archaeologists have not found the remains of such aircraft at the site of ancient Indians, and no artifacts directly related to Vimanas have been found. However, the detailed descriptions in ancient texts continue to fascinate those who believe in a deeper connection between the ancient world and advanced technology. What if the Vimana stories are not just a legend, but a glimpse of an ancient, highly developed culture whose knowledge has been lost over time? Could there be ancient blueprints hidden in forgotten temples or buried in long-lost scriptures that reveal the secrets of this lost technology? Or are the Vimanas simply symbols, mythical creations designed to represent the divine power of the gods who move through the heavens? As we delve deeper into the history of the Vimanas, we are left with an unsolved question. Were these flying chariots the property of the gods? Or was it more than that? The legacy of a vanished civilization waiting for us to rediscover their hidden secrets. And since the stories of Vimanas in ancient India excite our imagination, we will now turn our attention to another mystery, one that stretches back even further, to a vanished civilization that flourished in the Indus Valley long before the rise of Egypt or Mesopotamia. In the heart of this ancient world is the city of Mohenjo-Daro, one of the key sites of Indus Valley civilization, a place where history, technology, and mystery collide. Mohenjo-Daro, located in what is now Pakistan, was once a thriving urban center with a history dating back to around 2500 BC. The city is known for its well-developed infrastructure, grid-like streets, well-planned and drainage systems, and impressive buildings that indicate that the Indus Valley people were among the most technologically advanced of their contemporaries. But while the city's design and organization are impressive, it is the nature of its abandonment and mysterious signs of destruction that have sparked a heated debate among historians and archaeologists. When Mohenjo-Daro was rediscovered in the 1920s, excavations revealed a city that had been suddenly abandoned, its inhabitants abandoning their homes, tools, and possessions. Many buildings were found in a state of partial ruin, with signs of what appeared to be extensive destruction, including collapsed walls and charred remains. Some of the skeletal remains found at the site appear to have been abruptly buried with no apparent explanation for the sudden flight of the city's population. What is perhaps most worrying about Mohenjo-Daro is the detection of traces similar to radiation in certain parts of the city, especially around the ruins of some of the most heavily damaged buildings. In the 1970s, a researcher named David Davenport found evidence of elevated radiation levels in the vicinity of Mohenjo-Daro, leading to speculation that the city may have been the site of an ancient nuclear disaster. The idea that ancient civilization may have been exposed to some form of nuclear radiation seems far-fetched, but the evidence, while contradictory, has sparked further interest in the possibility that Mohenjo-Daro may have been the victim of a catastrophic event, possibly similar to a nuclear explosion. Mainstream historians generally reject the nuclear theory, suggesting that signs of destruction at Mohenjo-Daro may have been the result of more conventional factors, such as earthquakes, floods, or military action. They point to the discovery of burnt brick walls, which some believe may have been caused by high temperatures as a result of a fire rather than a nuclear explosion. However, others have questioned this explanation, pointing to the intensity of destruction in specific areas of the city, which seems incompatible with the more local effects of a fire or earthquake. In addition to potential radiation anomalies, the sudden abandonment of the city has led some to wonder if the fall of Mohenjo-Daro was linked to weapons of mass destruction, possibly a type of nuclear weapon used in the long-standing conflict. The eerie silence that followed the collapse of the Mohenjo-Daro suggests a form of destruction that went beyond simple environmental factors. Could it be that the people of the Indus Valley civilization had access to advanced technologies far beyond what we have historically attributed to them? Some marginal theories have gone even further, suggesting that the Indus Valley civilization was part of an advanced, now-lost culture that discovered the secret of nuclear power thousands of years ago. According to these ideas, the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, with their inexplicable destruction, are the remnants of an ancient nuclear war in which destructive weapons were used by ancient civilizations that knew much more about atomic energy than we were led to believe. While these theories remain speculative, they add another layer of intrigue to the Mohenjo-Daro mystery. The city's elaborate layout, combined with the odd evidence of destruction and potential radiation readings, suggests that there is much more to be found beneath the surface. Did the people of Mohenjo-Daro have knowledge of advanced technologies that were lost with the collapse of their civilization? Was their sudden disappearance the result of a catastrophic event that we are just beginning to understand? As we continue to explore Mohenjo-Daro, we are left with an unsolved question. Could the remains of this ancient city be the remnants of a civilization that has reached the heights of technology that we have only just begun to understand? Or was the city's fall the result of something more immediate, something that would remain buried in the sands of time? The answers may lie hidden under the rubble, waiting in the wings, if we dare to look deeper into the shadows of this ancient and mysterious past. And as we leave the mysterious ruins of Mohenjo-Daro behind with their whispering secrets of ancient destruction, we now move on to another set of mysteries that lie in the very structure and design of ancient temples scattered around the world. Built thousands of years ago, these sacred sites have long been revered not only for their spiritual significance, but also for the acoustic properties they seem to possess. Properties that have puzzled researchers for centuries. Imagine stepping into the vast expanse of the Karnak Temple in Luxor, Egypt, one of the most remarkable and awe-inspiring sites in the ancient world. Massive columns rise like giants, their surfaces covered with hieroglyphs and intricate carvings that tell the story of gods and pharaohs. But as you stand there in silence, something almost imperceptible happens. When you speak, the sound seems to resonate and give off an unnatural echo, as if the temple itself is alive and responds to your voice. You may feel that the stone walls reinforce your presence, making your words seem more powerful. This strange phenomenon is not unique to Karnak. Ancient temples around the world, from the pyramids of Giza to Machu Picchu in Peru and Angkor Wat in Cambodia, seem to have a curious feature. Their acoustics are tuned in such a way that the sound inside them behaves unusually. For example, some temples have been found to amplify certain frequencies, while others appear to create a resonance that amplifies sound in ways that modern buildings cannot reproduce. The acoustics of ancient temples have long intrigued researchers, which has led to theories about the purpose of these sound effects. Conventional explanations often focus on the possibility that the acoustics were carefully designed by ancient builders for ritual purposes. For example, it is believed that in ancient Egypt, priests used the acoustics of the temple to enhance the impression of singing or praying. Reverberation of sound could create an environment that enhanced the spiritual significance of rituals, allowing the sounds of ITV's mole to fill the space in such a way that they connected the faithful to the divine. In some cultures, it is believed that certain sounds can influence the environment in ways that promote spiritual enlightenment or even healing. The researchers noted that in Machu Picchu, certain places within the temple complex emit echoes that coincide with celestial events such as the summer solstice. Some have even suggested that the ancient builders of Machu Picchu may have used these acoustic effects to communicate with the gods, creating a deeper connection between the earth and the non-gods. Could these sound effects have been deliberate, part of a sacred knowledge lost in time? Beyond spiritual rituals, some suggest that the acoustic properties of these ancient sites may have served functional purposes, such as long-distance communication or amplifying public announcements. This theory holds that temples, with their vast courtyards and tall structures, were designed to transmit sound over large areas, allowing priests or rulers to communicate with large crowds without the aid of modern microphones or loudspeakers. However, despite these commonly accepted explanations, there are theories that address more speculative areas. Some researchers have begun to question whether the acoustics of these temples are related to advanced technologies that may have been lost in history. Could the ancient Egyptians, Mayans, or Angkor Wat builders have understood a form of sound manipulation or resonant technology that allowed them to use the power of sound for purposes beyond mere ritual or communication? Could the temples have been designed to interact with Earth's natural frequencies, revealing energetic possibilities that we have yet to fully understand? In some minor theories, the acoustics of temples are associated with energy fields or even gravitational waves, which suggests that the ancient builders may have created these spaces not only for the human voice, but also for the use of invisible forces, creating a connection between sound, energy, and the physical world. Could the resonant properties of these temples be part of a lost science that we are only now beginning to rediscover? Was manipulating sound in these ancient spaces a way to communicate with forces beyond our understanding, silts, and perhaps even extraterrestrial beings? Even more interesting are reports of the vibrational sensations experienced by visitors to these ancient sites. Some people report a strange feeling of euphoria or heightened consciousness when standing in certain places of temples, as if the vibrations in the air interact with the human body in subtle and deep ways. Could this be a remnant of technology that was once used to influence the human mind, triggering states of meditation, healing, or even changing perceptions? The mystery of the acoustics of ancient temples remains far from solved. Although we have made great strides in understanding the engineering solutions behind these places, their true purpose, whether for spirituality, communication, or something much more mysterious, remains elusive. Could the builders of these ancient temples have had knowledge of sound, vibration, and energy that we are only just beginning to understand? What can the sacred acoustics of these temples tell us about the lost wisdom of ancient civilizations and the deeper connection between sound, space, and the invisible forces of the universe? As we continue to explore these ancient sites, the echoes of the past still resound, waiting to reveal their secrets. And as we leave behind the ancient acoustics of temples, where sound and structure seem to merge in mysterious harmony, we now turn to the mystery that lurks beneath the water. A submerged formation off the coast of the Bahamas, near Island of North Bimini. Here, just below the surface of the turquoise waters, stretches a strange underwater formation, the Bimini Road, a series of rectangular limestone blocks that appear unnaturally aligned, as if they were placed there by human hands, forming what appears to be an ancient trail or road. The opening of the Bimini Road in the 1960s instantly sparked interest and intrigue. Scattered over a length of about 800 memometer, these large flat stones resemble a paved road or pier, leading some to believe that they may have been the remains of a vanished civilization, or perhaps even part of the mythical Atlantis. The formation is only 5 to 15 meters from the water, which makes it accessible to divers, and its unusual shape, consisting apparently of parallel lines with right angles, raises questions about its true origin. The main explanation for the Bimini Road is that it is a natural formation, a kind of geological feature created by the way limestone rocks have eroded over the millennia. Scientists assume that the blocks are the result of reef formation and tectonic activity, and that their appearance in the form of a road is a simple coincidence. According to this view, the natural forces of the sea have shaped the limestone in such a way that it looks like artificial structures. But this is entirely the result of natural geological processes. However, despite the geological explanations, the symmetrical location of the Bimini Road and the apparent man-made appearance continue to intrigue those who believe it could be something much more ancient and mysterious. The idea that it might have been a remnant of an ancient civilization, perhaps the legendary Atlantis, persisted, fueled by the belief that the story of Atlantis told by Plato could be more than just a myth. According to these theories, the Bimini Road may have been the remains of a submerged city or port, possibly from a time when the area was above water, thousands of years before the rise of known civilizations. Plato's account of Atlantis speaks of a vast technologically advanced civilization that existed long before written evidence of history appeared. And some believe that the Bimini Road may be one of the last remnants of this lost world. The symmetry of the shape, as well as the placement of the stones, seems so elaborate that it is difficult to rule out the possibility that they were created by humans, perhaps even a civilization with advanced engineering skills. Lost in time. Minor theories surrounding the Bimini Road further delve into the idea of ancient lost technologies. Some speculate that the stones may be part of an energy network, or that they were created to serve some powerful purpose, perhaps even a new one, related to sacred geometry or magnetism. These theories often point to the location of rocks, suggesting that they may have been created to tap into the Earth's natural energies or to serve as an energy transmission or communication system. Some even suggest that this formation may have been designed to interact with celestial forces as a kind of bridge between heaven and earth, using the location of rocks to harness the power of stars or planets. In addition, there are those who believe that the Bimini Road may have been associated with ancient knowledge of navigation or astronomy, and that it may have served as a route for ships or celestial travelers to guide them across the oceans or between distant lands. The concept of ancient civilizations with advanced navigation skills or astronomical knowledge is not new. The curious location of the Bimini Road has led some to speculate that it may have been part of a larger, now lost network of ancient shipping routes, the one that was forgotten and flooded by the rising sea level. Despite numerous investigations over the years, the true nature of the Bimini Road remains unsolved. No definitive evidence has been found to support or disprove any of the theories about its origin, and the formation continues to lie beneath the surface of the Caribbean Sea, its secrets buried under the sands of time and water. What if the Bimini Road is not just a natural formation, but something much older? Something that connects us to a vanished civilization? A fragment of human history that has yet to be fully revealed? Could it be the remains of a forgotten city, port, or sacred place whose purpose was connected with something far beyond our understanding? Or can the Bimini Road be a testament to the ancient wisdom of a civilization whose knowledge we have only just begun to comprehend? As the waves roll in and the sun sinks below the horizon, the Bimini Road continues to rest silently beneath the water, waiting for us to delve deeper into its mystery. What truths are still hidden beneath the surface? And what might we discover if we dared to take a closer look?